The executive elevator doors slid open on the 70th floor of Sterling Global headquarters, and a child's voice shattered the glass-smooth silence like a gunshot. "Mommy!" 6-year-old Ava Turner broke free from her father's grip and ran, tiny sneakers squeaking against marble, straight toward the woman everyone else kept a respectful 10 feet away from at all times. Clara Sterling, billionaire CEO, stopped mid-stride. Her perfectly tailored suit didn't move. Her expression didn't crack. But something fundamental shifted in the air around her. Ryan Turner's face drained of color as he lunged forward to grab his daughter, every corporate survival instinct screaming that he'd just lost his job and possibly his freedom. The board members froze. The assistants stopped breathing. Security's hands moved toward their radios. And Clara Sterling, the woman who'd built a financial empire on ruthless precision, stared at this maintenance supervisor and his child with an expression no one in that hallway could read. "Why?" she said, quietly, each word carved from ice. "Does your daughter call me that?" If you want to see how a single word can unravel the most carefully constructed life, drop a comment with your city below and hit that like button. This story goes places you won't expect. The thing about power, Clara Sterling had learned, was that it required absolute control. Control of information, control of perception, control of every single variable that could compromise the empire she'd spent 15 years building. Which was why, at 9:47 on a Tuesday morning, in the gleaming headquarters of Sterling Global, she found herself in a situation that defied every protocol she'd ever established. A child was hugging her legs. Not metaphorically. Not in some distant, charitable photo opportunity sense. Actually hugging her, small arms wrapped around the knees of her $1,000 suit, while a maintenance worker stammered apologies and security personnel exchanged panicked glances, waiting for her signal to intervene. Clara didn't give the signal. She stood perfectly still, her leather portfolio case still gripped in one hand, and stared down at the dark curls pressed against her skirt. The child smelled like strawberry shampoo and something else, something that made Clara's throat constrict in a way she hadn't felt in 7 years. "Ava, oh my God, Ava, I'm so sorry," Ryan Turner was saying, his voice tight with the kind of fear that came from knowing your entire livelihood could evaporate in the next 30 seconds. He grabbed for his daughter, but the girl held on tighter. "I missed you," Ava said, tilting her face up to look at Clara with eyes that were impossibly bright. "You didn't come yesterday. I waited." The words fell into the pristine corporate silence like stones into still water, and the ripples were going to reach everywhere. Clara felt the weight of a dozen gazes. Jonathan Mercer from the board, halfway through the elevator doors with his phone already in his hand, probably texting the other members. Her assistant Diane, frozen 3 steps behind with an expression of absolute confusion. The 2 security guards who'd been escorting her to the strategy meeting that was supposed to start in 8 minutes. She had built Sterling Global on the principle that emotion was weakness, that personal entanglements created vulnerabilities, that the only way to survive at the top was to remain untouchable. And now a 6-year-old was calling her mommy in front of witnesses. "Mr. Turner," Clara's voice came out level, professional, giving away nothing. "My office. Now." She gently detached Ava's arms with hands that didn't shake. She wouldn't allow them to shake, and straightened her suit jacket. The child looked up at her with confusion starting to cloud that bright happiness, and Clara felt something crack in her chest. "It's okay, sweetheart," she heard herself say, and then caught herself, adjusted. "You're not in trouble." Ryan Turner had gone from pale to gray. He scooped Ava up, the girl's princess backpack bouncing against his shoulder, and nodded jerkily. "Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am." Clara turned to her assistant without missing a beat. "Diane, reschedule the strategy session and clear my morning." "All of it?" "All of it." She walked toward her private elevator, the one that bypassed the main floors and went straight to the executive suite, and heard Ryan's footsteps behind her, quick and uncertain. Felt the stairs burning into her back. Knew that by the time this elevator reached the top floor, 7 different versions of what just happened would already be circulating through the building. The doors closed on the 3 of them. Silence pressed in, broken only by the quiet hum of the mechanism and Ava's soft breathing. Clara didn't look at them. She watched the numbers climb. 45. 50. 55. "Miss Sterling, I can explain us," Ryan started. "Don't." The word came out sharper than she intended. She softened it fractionally. Wait until we're in my office. 68. Ava whispered something to her father, too quiet for Clara to hear. Ryan's response was even quieter, but Clara caught the tone. Reassurance mixed with dread. The elevator chimed. 70. The doors opened onto a private vestibule that led to Clara's office suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city from a height that made most visitors dizzy. The decor was minimalist, expensive, cold. Everything in its place. Everything controlled. Clara's heels clicked against the polished concrete floor as she led them past her assistant's empty desk. Diane worked in the outer reception area and through the double doors into her office. The space was larger than most people's apartments. One wall was entirely glass, offering a view that cost more per square foot than most houses. The opposite wall held built-in shelving with legal texts, market analyses, and a handful of art pieces chosen by a consultant who understood that they were investments, not decorations. There were no photographs, no personal items, nothing that revealed anything about who Clara Sterling was when she wasn't being the CEO of a multinational corporation. Except for one thing, barely visible if you weren't looking for it, a small stuffed bear tucked behind a stack of reports on the credenza. Worn soft from handling, one ear slightly torn. Ava spotted it immediately. "Mr. Buttons!" She squirmed in her father's arms. "You kept him here!" Ryan's grip tightened on his daughter, confusion flickering across his face as he looked from the toy to Clara. Clara closed the office doors. The click of the lock was very loud. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the sitting area. 2 leather couches arranged around a glass coffee table, not the formal desk and chairs where she conducted business. This needed to be different. Ryan sat carefully on the edge of the couch, positioning Ava on his lap in a way that was protective and apologetic all at once. The girl was maybe 45 pounds, all dark curls and bright eyes, and that terrible, devastating hope that Clara remembered from another lifetime. Clara took the opposite couch, crossed her legs, folded her hands. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning." Ryan's jaw worked. He was maybe 35, Clara estimated, though the exhaustion carved into his features made him look older. Maintenance uniform, calloused hands, the kind of quiet dignity that came from working hard at a job most people never noticed. "I started here 2 years ago," he began. "Night shift, cleaning crew supervisor for floors 60 through 75. Clara nodded. She knew this already. She'd quietly reviewed his file after the 3rd time she'd encountered him in the building after hours. But she let him talk. "My wife died when Ava was 3. His voice went flat on those words, the way people's voices did when they'd said something so many times it had worn smooth from repetition. "Cancer. It was fast. We had some savings, but the medical bills..." He shook his head. "I needed work with good insurance. Benefits. The night shift paid more, so I took it." "And childcare?" Clara asked, though she already knew this answer too. "Couldn't afford it. Not for overnight hours." Ryan's arms tightened around Ava. "My neighbor watches her sometimes, but her schedule's irregular, so on the nights when I couldn't find anyone..." He trailed off, looked down at his daughter. Clara finished the thought for him. "You brought her here." "There's a storage room, basement level, behind the maintenance office." Ryan's words came faster now, defensive. "I set up a cot. Brought books. She's quiet. She never bothers anyone, and I check on her every hour during my rounds. It's just until I can get enough saved for proper daycare, I swear. I never meant for anyone to find out. But I found out." The words hung there. Ava, who'd been quiet through her father's explanation, suddenly spoke up. "You brought me Mr. Buttons, and the nightlight, and the books about the princess who was really a detective." Clara felt that crack in her chest widen. "Yes," she said quietly. "I did." Ryan stared at her. You knew? This whole time you knew my daughter was sleeping in your building and you didn't..." He stopped himself, visibly recalibrating. Whatever he'd been about to say would have gotten him fired for sure. "I found you about 14 months ago," Clara said. "I was working late, very late. I sometimes walk the building when I can't sleep." She didn't explain why she couldn't sleep. Didn't explain that she wandered empty corridors at 2 a.m. because her apartment was too quiet, too full of rooms she never entered, too heavy with an absence that had never gotten lighter, no matter how many years passed. I heard crying, she continued, followed the sound to that storage room, found Ava having a nightmare. She remembered it with perfect clarity, the small shape on the cot, thrashing in sleep, the way she'd hesitated in the doorway, every instinct screaming at her to walk away, to not get involved, to maintain the boundaries she'd built so carefully. But the crying had sounded so much like... Clara cut that thought off brutally. You came back. Ryan's voice was stunned. You kept coming back. I brought items that might make her more comfortable. A better light. Books. The bear. Clara's tone remained neutral, factual, as if she were describing a business transaction. On nights when you were delayed on other floors, I would check on her, make sure she was safe. You read to me, Ava said softly. The princess stories, and you told me about the stars. Clara's hands tightened fractionally against each other. Yes. Why? Ryan asked. The question wasn't accusatory. It was genuinely baffled. Why would you do that and not just report me? Fire me? You could have called child services, ended this. I could have. Clara met his gaze steadily. I didn't. But why? The question Clara had been asking herself for 14 months. The question she'd never been able to answer in any way that made sense. She looked at Ava, who was watching her with those impossibly bright eyes, and felt the weight of all the things she never talked about pressing against her throat. 7 years ago, Clara said, each word carefully controlled, I had a daughter. Her name was Lily. She was 4 years old. Ryan went very still. She died in a car accident. My husband was driving. He died too. The facts came out clean, clinical. Clara had learned to recite them that way. Anything else, and she'd never get through them. I built Sterling Global in the years afterward. I worked. I focused on things I could control. I didn't... She paused, steadied herself. I didn't let myself think about what I'd lost. And then I found Ava, alone in the dark, having a nightmare, and I... Her voice cracked. Actually cracked. Clara stopped, took a breath, started again. I couldn't walk away. The silence that followed was different from the corporate silence of the hallway. This silence was heavy with understanding, with shared grief, with the weight of truths that couldn't be unsaid. Ava slipped off her father's lap and crossed to Clara's couch with the fearless certainty of a child who hadn't yet learned that some people didn't want to be approached. My first mommy is in heaven, she said seriously, standing in front of Clara. Daddy told me she watches over me from the stars. Is your little girl in heaven too? Clara's throat closed completely. She managed a nod. Then they probably know each other, Ava said with the perfect logic of 6-year-old certainty. Maybe they're friends. And just like that, Clara Sterling, who hadn't cried in 7 years, who'd delivered eulogies without tears, who'd built an empire on ice-cold control, felt her eyes burn. Maybe, she whispered. Ava climbed onto the couch beside her and leaned against her arm. The gesture was casual, trusting, completely unselfconscious. This was apparently what they did. This was their normal. Ryan watched them with an expression Clara couldn't quite read. Confusion, concern, something else. I should have asked, he said finally. Before I let her... I should have realized that you were dealing with your own... He ran a hand over his face. I thought you were just being kind. I didn't know there was a reason. There's always a reason, Clara said. People don't just do things. You did. You helped us, and you didn't have to. I helped myself. The admission came out harder than she'd intended. Those hours with Ava, they were the only hours I could breathe properly in 7 years, so don't make me noble. I was selfish. You brought my daughter books and stuffed animals and sat with her when she was scared, Ryan said quietly. Call it whatever you want. That's not selfish. Clara looked down at Ava, who'd picked up the tablet from the coffee table and was absorbed in something on the screen, apparently content to just sit pressed against Clara's side. This child who'd called her mommy in front of the board. This child who'd just unraveled every carefully maintained boundary Clara had spent 7 years constructing. What happens now? Ryan asked. The question was heavy with implications. His job. His daughter. The whispers that were already spreading through 70 floors of corporate gossip. Clara considered. From a strategic standpoint, this was a disaster. The CEO of Sterling Global secretly mothering an employee's child? The optics were terrible. The potential for lawsuits, for accusations of favoritism, for questions about her judgment, it was all catastrophic. She should fire Ryan, transfer him to another building at minimum, cut all contact with Ava, rebuild her walls, return to the controlled isolation that had kept her safe. Should. What do you want to happen? Clara asked instead. Ryan blinked. What do I want? You're the father. Ava is your daughter. I've overstepped significantly. Clara kept her voice level. If you want me to step back, I will. If you want to request a transfer to another division, another building, I'll arrange it with a recommendation and a raise. No questions asked, no repercussions. And if I don't want that? The question caught Clara off guard. She studied him, this man who'd been working night shifts to survive, who'd been bringing his daughter to work rather than leave her alone, who'd clearly been terrified when Ava ran to her in the hallway, but was now sitting here asking what she wanted. Then we need to establish boundaries, Clara said carefully. Clear ones. This can't be what it's been. Secret meetings in storage rooms. I can't. She stopped, started over. It's not appropriate. For either of us. For Ava. Because you're the CEO. Because I'm not her mother. The words hurt to say. And letting her think I am, letting myself pretend, it's not fair to her. She deserves better than someone who's using her to fill a void. Ava looked up from the tablet. What's a void? Clara's chest tightened. It's an empty space. Oh. Ava considered this. Then, with the devastating directness of childhood, are you empty? The question hit like a physical blow. Yes, Clara heard herself say. I am. That's sad. Ava shifted closer, wrapping her small arms around Clara's waist in a hug that was pure comfort, no calculation. Hugs help when you're sad. Over the child's head, Clara met Ryan's eyes, saw in them the reflection of her own grief, her own desperate loneliness, her own fear of letting go of something that felt like healing even though it was built on impossible ground. I don't want to transfer, Ryan said quietly, and I don't think you want us to disappear. What I want is irrelevant. What's right? What's right is complicated. Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Look, I know this is all kinds of wrong from a professional standpoint. I know I should have put a stop to it the first time I realized someone was visiting Ava, but I was so relieved that she had someone, that she wasn't completely alone down there, He shook his head. I convinced myself it was fine, that whoever it was just being kind. I was being selfish, Clara repeated. Then we were both selfish. Ryan's voice was firm. Because knowing someone was checking on my daughter when I couldn't be there? That let me sleep for the first time in 3 years. So if you were using Ava to feel less empty, I was using you to feel less terrified. We're even. Clara opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She'd never thought of it that way. Ava isn't confused, Ryan continued. She knows I'm her dad. She knows her mother is gone. But she also knows that you've been showing up for her, consistently, for over a year. That matters. That's real. It's not sustainable, Clara said, but her protest sounded weak even to her own ears. Maybe not the way it's been. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Ryan held her gaze. You said we need boundaries. Okay, let's establish them. But don't disappear. Don't make Ava lose someone else who cares about her just because it's professionally awkward. It's more than awkward. It's complicated, Ryan finished. Yeah, you said that. But most things worth having are complicated. Ava had gone still against Clara's side, listening with the kind of intense focus children had when they knew something important was being decided. Clara looked down at the dark curls, the small hands gripping her jacket, the trust in every line of that little body, felt the crack in her chest widen further, felt the walls she'd built so carefully starting to crumble. This was the moment, the choice point. She could still walk away, still rebuild her defenses, still return to the cold control that had kept her functional, if not happy, for 7 years. Or she could take the risk. I don't know how to do this, Clara admitted. I don't know how to be in someone's life halfway. I don't know how to care about people without it destroying me when they leave. Who said anything about leaving? Ryan asked. Everyone leaves. Eventually. The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Ryan's expression softened into understanding. My wife didn't leave, he said quietly. She died. Your husband and daughter didn't leave. They died. That's different. The result is the same. No, it's not. Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. Leaving is a choice. Dying is a tragedy. Don't confuse the two. Clara felt something shift inside her. Some locked door she'd kept bolted shut rattling in its frame. I wake up every morning missing them, she said, the words scraping their way out. I built this entire company as a distraction from the fact that I don't know how to live in a world where they don't exist. And then I found Ava, and for a few hours a week, I could pretend. Her voice broke completely this time. She stopped trying to control it. I could pretend I was still someone's mother. Ava lifted her head, looked at Clara with eyes that were too wise for 6 years old. You are someone's mother, she said simply. You're mine. Not instead of my first mommy, but also. The word hung in the air. Also. Not replacement. Addition. Ava, Ryan started, but Clara held up a hand. She looked at this child who'd somehow worked her way past every defense, who'd called her mommy in front of the board without hesitation, who was offering love without conditions or complicated negotiations. I can't be your mother, Clara said, and watched Ava's face start to fall. But I can be someone who shows up, someone who cares, someone who stays. The last word came out uncertain, testing its weight. Ava's face lit up. Like family? Clara glanced at Ryan, who was watching her with an expression that might have been hope. Like family, she agreed carefully. But we have to do this properly. No more storage rooms, no more secrets. What do you suggest? Ryan asked. Clara's mind shifted into problem-solving mode, territory she understood. Childcare first. I'll arrange for, I can't afford. Sterling Global has childcare benefits for overnight shift workers. We just don't publicize them well. Clara was already mentally drafting the policy revision she'd push through. You'll apply through normal channels. It'll be processed as standard employee benefit. Ryan looked skeptical. We have overnight childcare? We will by the end of the week. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You're going to create a company policy just to cover this? I'm going to create a company policy because it should exist. You're not the only single parent working nights. Clara stood, gently extracting herself from Ava's embrace. In the meantime, Ava can stay in the employee family room during your shifts. We have a family room? Floor 15. Most people don't know about it. Clara walked to her desk, pulling up files on her computer. It's intended for employees who need to bring family members to work during emergencies. It has beds, a kitchenette, entertainment. Security monitors it. She was typing rapidly now, sending messages, making arrangements. This was what she was good at: problems, solutions, action items. Ms. Sterling, Ryan stood, overwhelmed. This is too much. It's the minimum your employment should have included from the start. Clara didn't look up from her screen. Consider it a correction of oversight. Clara. She stopped typing, turned. Ryan almost never used her first name. She wasn't even sure he'd ever said it before. Thank you, he said simply. The words were weighted with more than gratitude for childcare policies. Clara nodded once. Looked at Ava, who was spinning in the office chair and giggling. I have meetings this afternoon that I can't cancel, Clara said. But tomorrow is Saturday. Does Ava like museums? Ava stopped spinning. What's a museum? A place with art and history and... Clara paused, remembering. Dinosaurs. They have dinosaur bones. Dinosaurs! Ava's shriek of joy was loud enough to probably carry through the office doors. Ryan laughed, actually laughed, the sound startled and genuine. I think that's a yes. Natural History Museum, 10 a.m. Clara pulled out her phone, fingers moving across the screen. I'll text you the address. You have my number? I had Diane pull your employee file after the third time I found Ava. Clara sent the message. For emergency purposes. Right. Emergency purposes. Ryan's tone was dry, but not unkind. He looked at his daughter. Ava, say thank you to Ms. Sterling. Thank you, Mommy. Ava, Ryan's voice held gentle correction. We talked about this. Miss Sterling isn't. I know. Ava rolled her eyes with 6-year-old exasperation. Daddy explained, you're Clara, but you feel like a mommy feels, so it's confusing. Out of the mouths of children, Clara thought. You can call me Clara, she said, then, testing the word, or Clara Mom, if that's easier. She glanced at Ryan to see if she'd overstepped. He looked surprised, but not upset. That works, he said slowly, if you're comfortable with it. Was she comfortable? Clara examined the feeling. It wasn't comfort exactly. It was terrifying. It was vulnerability. It was risk. It also felt more real than anything she'd let herself feel in 7 years. I'm comfortable, she said. Ava beamed and went back to spinning in the chair. Clara's phone buzzed. Messages pouring in. Diane asking about the rescheduled meeting. Jonathan Mercer asking if everything was resolved. 3 other board members with carefully worded inquiries that all meant the same thing. What the hell happened in the hallway? I need to do damage control, Clara said. The board saw what happened. They'll have questions. What are you going to tell them? Ryan asked. Good question. Clara considered her options. She could lie, minimize, spin it as a case of mistaken identity, a confused child, nothing to see here. But lies required maintenance, required constant vigilance, required keeping Ava at arm's length in public while maintaining some relationship in private, and that felt impossible now. The truth, she decided, an edited version, that you're a single father, that I've been helping with childcare informally, that we're formalizing support through proper company channels. They'll think it's favoritism. It is favoritism. Clara met his eyes steadily. I'm okay with that. Are you? Ryan took a breath. My daughter is happy. She has someone else who cares about her. If that costs me some gossip from people I'll never meet, I can live with it. It might cost more than gossip. There could be professional implications for both of us. Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to be realistic. Ryan smiled slightly. That's very CEO of you. Someone has to think about the consequences. And someone has to remember why we're doing this in the first place. Ryan gestured at Ava, who'd found the stuffed bear and was having an animated conversation with it. Look at her. When's the last time you saw her that happy? Last night, Clara thought, when I read her the chapter about the princess solving the mystery of the missing crown jewels. Point taken, she said quietly. Her phone buzzed again. The board meeting had been rescheduled for Monday morning. She'd have the weekend to figure out exactly what she was going to say. How to explain that the untouchable Clara Sterling had been secretly playing mother to an employee's child for 14 months. How to explain it in a way that didn't make her sound unstable or inappropriate or compromised. How to explain something she couldn't even fully explain to herself. I should go, Ryan said, reading her expression. You have work, and I need to get Ava home and, he paused, process all of this. Of course. Clara walked them to the door, then hesitated. Ryan, about tomorrow, the museum. You should come too. He blinked. I thought it was just you and Ava. It should be all of us. This isn't me trying to replace you, or be her mother instead of you being her father. It's also, Ryan said softly, understanding. Yes, also. He nodded slowly. Okay, museum, tomorrow, 10 a.m., we'll be there. Ava ran back to hug Clara one more time, fierce and quick. Bye, Clara, Mom. And then they were gone, the office doors closing behind them, leaving Clara alone in the expensive silence with her city view and her work and the stuffed bear that Ava had left on the couch. She picked it up, sat down, held it against her chest. For the first time in 7 years, Clara Sterling let herself cry. Not the controlled, silent tears she'd shed at funerals. Real crying. The kind that hurt coming out. The kind that meant something was breaking open instead of just breaking. When Diane knocked 20 minutes later, tentative, worried, Clara had washed her face and rebuilt her composure. The bear was back on the credenza. The vulnerability was locked away again, but not as deeply as before. Never as deeply as before. Send in Jonathan, Clara said. Let's get this over with. The door opened. The board member walked in with his concerned expression and his careful questions. And Clara Sterling, CEO, began the delicate work of protecting the family she'd accidentally found in the basement of her own building. The family she wasn't ready to lose. Not now. Not when she'd just remembered how to feel. Jonathan Mercer sat across from Clara with the carefully neutral expression of someone who'd spent 30 years on corporate boards learning to mask every reaction. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit immaculate, his tie knotted with mathematical precision. Everything about him screamed control, which was probably why he'd lasted this long in Sterling Global's inner circle. "That was quite a scene in the hallway," he said, his tone conversational, as if commenting on the weather rather than what could be a career-ending scandal. Clara leaned back in her chair, projecting the calm authority that had become second nature. "A child mistook me for someone else. It happens." "Does it?" Jonathan crossed his legs, steepling his fingers. "Because from where I was standing, that didn't look like a case of mistaken identity. That looked like recognition. The child's father is an employee, Ryan Turner, maintenance supervisor. His daughter has seen me in the building." "At 2 in the morning?" Claire's expression didn't flicker. "I work late. You know this." "I know you practically live here," Jonathan's voice softened fractionally. "Clara, I'm not here to judge. I'm here because the other board members are already spinning theories, and I wanted to hear the truth from you before the gossip gets out of hand. The truth is straightforward. Mr. Turner is a widower, working nights to support his daughter. Childcare for overnight shifts is prohibitively expensive. I discovered his situation and offered assistance." "What kind of assistance?" "The kind that ensured a 6-year-old wasn't sleeping in a storage room while her father worked." Jonathan's eyebrows rose slightly. That had surprised him. "Good." Clara pressed the advantage. "Sterling Global employs over 15,000 people. How many of them do you think are in similar situations? Single parents, working multiple shifts, trying to keep their heads above water while we profit from their labor." She kept her voice level, reasonable. "I'm implementing a comprehensive childcare support program, subsidized care for overnight and weekend shifts, emergency family accommodations, education stipends. That's going to cost millions. It's going to cost less than the turnover we experience from losing good employees who can't manage work-life balance." Clara pulled up a presentation she'd started drafting the moment Ryan left her office. Numbers. Projections. Return on investment calculations. "I'll present the full proposal at Monday's meeting, but the preliminary analysis shows we'll recoup the investment within 18 months through improved retention and productivity." She watched Jonathan process this, watched him shift from concerned board member to calculating businessman. This was the language he understood: profit, loss, strategic advantage. "You're using one employee's situation to justify a company-wide policy change?" "I'm using one employee's situation to recognize a systemic gap in our benefit structure." Clara met his gaze steadily. "Unless you'd prefer I handle this case individually, which would actually create the appearance of favoritism you're worried about." A smile tugged at Jonathan's mouth. "You're good. I'd forgotten how good you are at this." "At what?" "Turning potential disasters into strategic opportunities." He stood, straightening his jacket. "Fine. Present the proposal Monday. But, Clara..." He paused at the door. "The child called you mommy. That's not going to disappear just because you've crafted a good business justification." "I'm aware. Are you?" Jonathan's expression turned serious. "Because the Clara Sterling I've known for 15 years doesn't do personal attachments, doesn't do messy, doesn't let anyone close enough to call her anything other than Ms. Sterling or CEO, so either something's changed or you're playing an angle I don't see yet." Clara held his gaze, refusing to look away. "People are allowed to change, Jonathan." "They are. The question is whether the board will accept that change or see it as a liability." After he left, Clara sat in the silence of her office and acknowledged the truth of his words. The board had built Sterling Global alongside her. They'd watched her channel grief into ambition, transform loss into corporate dominance. They were comfortable with Ice Queen Clara, the woman who made ruthless decisions without emotional interference. They wouldn't know what to do with a Clara who cared. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "The partners are asking questions. How should I respond?" Clara typed back, Schedule individual meetings for Monday afternoon. I'll address concerns directly. Then she opened a new message thread. Ryan's number. She stared at the blank text box, cursor blinking. What did you say to someone who'd just become unexpectedly central to your life? How did you navigate this territory when you'd spent 7 years avoiding anything resembling emotional connection? Finally, she typed, Employee family room is on floor 15, East Wing, code 4739. Available 24/7. Diane will send you access credentials. Professional, practical, safe. She deleted it. Tried again. Looking forward to tomorrow. Ava will love the dinosaurs. Better, more human. She sent it before she could overthink. His response came 30 seconds later. Thank you. For everything. I mean it. Clara stared at those words longer than they probably warranted. Then she set her phone down and returned to work, drafting policy proposals and preparing presentations, doing what she did best, building structures to contain chaos. The rest of Friday blurred past in meetings and emails, and the careful management of curiosity. Diane fielded questions with practiced efficiency. Clara maintained her composure through 6 different conversations that were all variations of what happened this morning. By the time she left the building at 9 p.m., she was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the work. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. Clara stood in front of her closet and realized she had no idea what one wore to a museum with a 6-year-old. Her wardrobe consisted of power suits, evening wear for charity functions, and workout clothes for the gym she visited at 5 a.m. 3 times a week. Nothing remotely appropriate for dinosaurs. She settled on dark jeans purchased years ago for a corporate retreat she'd skipped, and a cashmere sweater. Felt ridiculous. Changed into slacks, changed back to jeans, finally accepted that she was stalling because she was nervous, which was absurd. She'd negotiated billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat. She could handle a museum visit. The Natural History Museum steps were crowded with families when Clara arrived at 9:55. She spotted Ryan and Ava immediately. They were early, too, waiting near the entrance. Ava wore a dinosaur t-shirt and light-up sneakers, bouncing with barely contained excitement. Ryan had traded his maintenance uniform for jeans and a jacket, looking younger and less exhausted than he had in her office. "Clara, Mom!" Ava waved enthusiastically, and several nearby families turned to look. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks, an unfamiliar sensation, but she smiled and waved back. As she approached, Ryan gave her an assessing look. "You look different," he said. "Different bad or different good?" "Just different. Human." He caught himself. "Sorry, that came out wrong. I know what you meant." Clara did know. She'd spent so many years being the CEO, the board member, the strategic mind, that she'd forgotten how to be just a person. "Shall we?" Inside the museum was a maze of wonders. Ava dragged them from exhibit to exhibit, eyes huge, asking 1,000 questions that Clara found herself trying to answer with actual knowledge rather than dismissive platitudes. Ryan hung back sometimes, letting Clara and Ava explore together, and Clara was hyper-aware of the picture they must make. A woman and a child, holding hands, pointing at displays, looking like a mother and daughter. At the dinosaur exhibit, Ava pressed her nose against the glass protecting a fossilized triceratops skull. "How did they get so big?" "Evolution," Clara said. "Millions of years of adaptation to their environment." "What's evolution?" Clara crouched down to Ava's level, launching into an explanation of natural selection that was probably too complex, but that Ava listened to with rapt attention. When she finished, Ryan was watching them with an awed expression. "What?" Clara asked. "Nothing. Just, you're good at this." "At what?" "Talking to her like she's a person, not a child. She responds to that." Clara looked at Ava, who'd moved on to examining a T-Rex skeleton with intense focus. "I always hated when adults talked down to me, assumed I couldn't understand complex concepts." "Lily was like that too?" The question was gentle, careful. Clara appreciated that he'd asked rather than avoided the subject entirely. "Yes. She wanted to know how everything worked, why the sky was blue, where rain came from, how birds flew." Clara smiled at the memory, and it hurt less than it had in years. "My husband used to joke that we'd created a tiny scientist." "What was his name?" "Marcus." Clara stood, brushing dust off her jeans. He was a professor. History. We met at a conference. I was presenting on corporate ethics, and he was on a panel about historical economic systems. He made me laugh. That was rare. They moved through the exhibits, and Clara found herself talking more than she had in years. About Marcus and Lily. About the life she'd had before it shattered. Ryan listened without interrupting, occasionally asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. "Do you mind?" he asked at one point, "talking about them?" "I thought I would," Clara admitted. "For years, I couldn't say their names without feeling like I was being flayed alive. But this, it actually helps. Remembering that they were real, that they mattered." Ava ran back to them, grabbing both their hands. "The lady said there's a planetarium show in 10 minutes. Can we go, please?" They went. Sat in the darkened dome while stars wheeled overhead, and a narrator explained constellations and nebulae and the incomprehensible vastness of space. Ava sat between them, occasionally whispering questions that Clara answered in whispers of her own. Halfway through, Ava's hand found Clara's in the dark and held on tight. Clara's throat constricted. This small gesture of trust, of affection, of connection, it undid something in her. She glanced at Ryan and found him watching them, his expression soft in the reflected starlight. After the show, they grabbed lunch at the museum cafe. Ava chattered nonstop about dinosaurs and planets and whether they could come back next weekend. Ryan tried to manage her enthusiasm, while Clara found herself agreeing to more museum trips, more Saturdays, more time that she was carving out of her carefully controlled schedule. "You don't have to commit to all this," Ryan said quietly, while Ava was distracted by a gift shop display. "If it's too much, it's not too much." Clara surprised herself with how quickly she said it. "I want to, unless you think it's too much, for you and Ava." "Honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what this is." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Yesterday morning, you were a stranger who was mysteriously helping us. Now we're at a museum like some kind of... I don't even know what to call it." "Family," Clara said quietly. "Unconventional, complicated. But family." Ryan met her eyes. "You really mean that?" "I'm not in the habit of saying things I don't mean." "No, I'm learning that about you." He smiled slightly. "Clara Sterling, corporate legend, secretly has a heart. Don't tell anyone, it'll ruin my reputation." "Your secret's safe with me." His tone was light, but his eyes were serious. "Though I think Monday's meeting might be interesting." Clara had been trying not to think about Monday, about facing the board with her new policies and her complicated personal situation, and the questions that wouldn't have easy answers. "I've faced hostile takeovers and market crashes," she said. "I can handle a board meeting." "I don't doubt it, but Clara..." Ryan hesitated. "What if they push back? What if they see Ava and me as a liability? Then they'll have to explain why providing adequate childcare support to employees is a liability. I'm prepared for this conversation." "That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what happens if they make you choose. The company or us?" The question hit harder than Clara expected, because it was a real possibility. Jonathan had already hinted at it. The board could decide that Clara's judgment was compromised, that her attachment to Ryan and Ava represented a conflict of interest. They could force her out, or at minimum, force her to cut all contact. "I won't let it come to that," Clara said firmly. "But if it does?" Clara looked at Ava, now showing Ryan an overpriced stuffed triceratops she desperately wanted. Watched the way he listened seriously to her argument for why she needed it, then gently negotiated her down to a smaller, more reasonably priced option. Saw the love and patience in every interaction, saw what she'd been missing for 7 years. "If it comes to that," Clara said slowly, "then I'll have to reevaluate what's actually important." Ryan's eyes widened. "You're not saying you'd choose..." "I'm saying I'm not going to lose my family twice." The words came out more intense than she'd intended. "I lost everything once. Spent 7 years building walls to make sure it never hurt that badly again. And then Ava called me mommy in front of the board, and those walls started cracking, and I realized something." "What?" "I'm tired of being empty. I'm tired of being safe." Clara's voice dropped. "So yes, if the board makes me choose, I know what my answer will be." "Clara, I can't let you throw away your life's work for what? For a maintenance supervisor and his daughter? Clara's tone sharpened. Don't diminish this, Ryan. Don't make it small. I'm not trying to... You are. You're already thinking about how to make this easier for me. How to step back so I don't have to make hard choices. Clara held his gaze. But I'm done with easy. Easy is lonely. Easy is walking empty hallways at 2 a.m. because going home is too painful. Easy is letting fear dictate every decision. Ryan stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying I want this. Messy, complicated, risky, this. Museum Saturdays and stuffed dinosaurs and board meetings where I have to defend why I care about people. I want it. Why? The question was soft, almost awed. Clara watched Ava clutching her new toy, completely oblivious to the intensity of the conversation happening 3 feet away. Because she makes me remember what it felt like to be someone's mother, and you make me remember what it felt like to be part of something bigger than my own grief. She paused. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm using both of you to heal myself, but I can't pretend I don't care anymore. I can't go back to the way things were. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if caring isn't enough? What if we screw this up? Then we screw it up. Claire's voice was steady. But at least we'll have tried. You're serious about this. About us. Completely. Even though we've barely known each other outside of hallway encounters and one museum trip. I've been reading to your daughter for 14 months. I know her favorite book is about the princess detective. I know she's afraid of thunderstorms, but pretends she's not because she thinks it makes her braver. I know she counts stars when she can't sleep and that she wants to be a paleontologist or an astronaut, or possibly both. Clara softened her tone. I know her, Ryan, and through her I've been getting to know you. The father who works nights so she can have good insurance, who brings her books and makes sure she's safe, who could have reported me to HR for inappropriate conduct, but instead trusted that I had good intentions. I saw how you looked at her, Ryan said quietly, like she mattered more than anything. How could I get in the way of that? Most people would have. Maybe, but most people haven't lost what we've lost. His eyes held understanding and shared grief. We recognize each other, Clara. The walking wounded. The ones who learn to function around a hole that never fills. Is that all this is? Shared trauma? No. Ryan glanced at Ava, then back to Clara. But it's the foundation, and maybe that's okay. Maybe two broken people can build something whole together. The words settled between them, heavy with possibility. Ava bounded over, Triceratops clutched tight. Can we get ice cream? The sign says there's a place across the street. Clara found herself nodding before she'd consciously decided. Ice cream sounds perfect. They crossed to the ice cream shop, ordered absurd flavors that Ava insisted they all try, and ended up at an outdoor table despite the cold, wrapped in jackets and sharing spoons and laughing when Ava got chocolate on her nose. It was the most normal thing Clara had done in 7 years. It was also terrifying, because normal meant vulnerable. Normal meant caring about people who could be lost. Normal meant accepting that control was an illusion, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was let yourself love anyway. What are you thinking about? Ryan asked, watching her over Ava's head. How strange this is. How right it feels anyway. Yeah, he smiled. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to remember you're a billionaire CEO, and we're just... Don't finish that sentence. Clara's voice was firm. You're not just anything. Ava looked up from her ice cream, chocolate smeared across her grin. Are we a real family now? The question stopped both adults mid-breath. Clara looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at Clara. Some wordless communication passed between them. We're figuring it out, sweetheart, Ryan said carefully. Family comes in lots of different shapes. But we're together, right? We do things together now, not just in the basement? Yes, Clara heard herself say. We're together, properly. Ava's smile could have lit the city. She went back to her ice cream, satisfied, while Clara and Ryan sat with the weight of what they'd just promised. We're really doing this, Ryan murmured. Apparently so. On Monday, when you face the board, I'll handle it. Clara's voice carried absolute conviction. Trust me. I do. That's what scares me. Clara understood. She was scared too. Scared of caring this much. Scared scared of losing people again, scared of what it meant to choose connection over safety. But she was also, for the first time in 7 years, alive. They walked Ava around the park after ice cream, burning off sugar and energy. Clara found herself pushing Ava on the swings, listening to her delighted shrieks, feeling Ryan's presence beside her like something solid and real. "My apartment is too small for this," Ryan said suddenly. Clara glanced at him. "For what?" "For you to visit. If we're doing this properly, having you in Ava's life, building something, you can't keep meeting us in museums and parks. But my place is a studio in a building with broken elevators and thin walls. It's not exactly—" "I don't care about that," Clara interrupted. "You live in a penthouse. I live in an expensive box that I hate going home to." The admission came out blunt. "Ryan, I don't care where you live. I care that you're there." He studied her face. "You mean that? Why does everyone keep asking if I mean things? Have I given you any reason to doubt my sincerity?" "No, it's just, people like you don't usually—" "People like me?" Clara's tone went cold. "Wealthy people? CEOs? What exactly are you implying?" Ryan held up his hands. "That came out wrong. I meant people who have the option to stay separate usually take it. But you're not. You're choosing messy and complicated when you could choose distance." Clara's anger deflated. "Oh. Yeah. Oh." Ryan smiled slightly. "I'm still getting used to the fact that you're actually here, actually choosing this. Get used to it faster. We have limited time before reality crashes back in." "Monday morning." "Monday morning," Clara confirmed. They collected Ava from the playground as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ava was yawning now, exhausted from the full day, leaning heavily against Ryan's shoulder. "Thank you," he said quietly as they walked to the parking area. "For today. For all of it." "Thank you for letting me in," Clara replied. They stood there in the fading light, this unlikely family, and Clara felt something shift in her chest, not the crack of breaking, but the shift of pieces falling into place. "I'll see you Monday?" Ryan asked. "Monday." Clara hesitated, then reached out and squeezed Ava's hand. "Sleep well, sweetheart." Ava's answering smile was drowsy but content. "Love you, Clara, Mom." The words hit like a physical impact. Clara's breath caught. "I love you too," she whispered, and meant it with terrifying intensity. She watched them drive away, standing alone in the parking lot as evening deepened into night. Her phone buzzed with work emails, crises that needed managing, decisions that needed making, the endless demands of running an empire. Clara looked at the messages and felt none of the usual urgency. Instead, she felt only the echo of a child's voice saying, "Love you," and the weight of what Monday would bring. She drove home to her empty penthouse, but for the first time in 7 years, empty didn't feel permanent. It felt like a space waiting to be filled. And Clara Sterling, who'd built her life on control and isolation, found herself looking forward to the beautiful chaos of letting people in, even if it meant facing the board, even if it meant risking everything, even if it meant admitting that sometimes the strongest thing you could do was allow yourself to be vulnerable. Monday was coming. The board was waiting. Questions would be asked that didn't have easy answers. But Clara had Ava's laughter echoing in her memory, and Ryan's quiet strength in her corner, and the unfamiliar feeling of hope warming her chest. She'd face whatever came. She wouldn't face it alone. Monday morning arrived with the kind of cold clarity that made everything feel sharper, more real. Clara stood in front of her bathroom mirror at 5:30 a.m., applying makeup with mechanical precision while her mind ran through every possible scenario the board meeting could take. She'd faced hostile boardrooms before, survived attempted coups and shareholder rebellions and market crashes that would have destroyed lesser companies. But those battles had been purely strategic, intellectual exercises where emotion was a weakness to be exploited. This was different. This time, she was walking in with her heart exposed, defending something that had nothing to do with profit margins, and everything to do with the life she was trying to rebuild from the wreckage of grief. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Ryan. "Ava wanted me to tell you good luck today. Also, she drew you a picture of a triceratops. I'll bring it by later if that's okay." Clara stared at the message, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She typed back, "That would be perfect. Thank you." Then before she could overthink it, "How are you holding up?" His response came quickly. Nervous. Feel like I'm the reason you're about to walk into a firing squad. You're the reason I have something worth fighting for. There's a difference. She watched the typing indicator appear and disappear several times before his reply finally came through. I don't know what I did to deserve you showing up in our lives, but I'm grateful for it. Clara's throat tightened. She set the phone down and finished getting ready, choosing her armor carefully. A dark gray suit that said power without aggression, hair pulled back in a style that was professional but not severe, minimal jewelry. She needed to look like the Clara Sterling they knew while subtly signaling that something fundamental had shifted. The drive to Sterling Global was quiet, her driver navigating morning traffic with practiced efficiency. Clara used the time to review her presentation one final time, though she'd already memorized every slide, every statistic, every counterargument to the objections she knew were coming. The building rose into the gray sky like a monument to ambition, Clara's ambition, built on grief and rage and the desperate need to create something that couldn't be taken away. Except now she understood that nothing was safe from loss. Not buildings or bank accounts or carefully constructed walls. The only thing you could control was whether you let fear stop you from living. She rode the executive elevator to the 70th floor, remembering how Ava had run across this same marble hallway just days ago, how that single word had shattered 7 years of careful isolation. Diane was already at her desk, looking worried. They're all here, she said quietly. Early. Jonathan asked me 3 times if you were definitely coming. As if I'd missed my own board meeting. Clara kept her voice light, but she appreciated the warning. Early arrival meant they'd been strategizing, forming alliances, deciding how to handle the Clara situation. Your presentation is loaded and ready, coffee is fresh, and Clara, Diane hesitated. Whatever happens in there, you've built something extraordinary. Don't let them make you forget that. The unexpected support made Clara pause. Thank you, Diane. I've worked for you for 8 years. I've never seen you smile the way you did when that little girl hugged you. Diane's expression was fierce. Some things matter more than quarterly reports. Clara nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and walked into the boardroom. 10 faces turned to look at her. The board of Sterling Global, assembled in their usual seats around the massive glass table. Jonathan Mercer at the far end. Patricia Chen, the CFO, with her tablet already out and notes visible. Marcus Webb from Legal, expression carefully neutral. 7 others who'd helped build this empire and who now held the power to tear it down. Good morning, Clara said, taking her position at the head of the table with the confidence of someone who'd earned her place there through blood and brilliance. Thank you all for coming. We wouldn't miss it, Patricia said dryly. This should be interesting. Clara pulled up her presentation on the screen behind her. The title slide was simple. Employee Family Support Initiative. As you're all aware, an incident occurred last Friday that raised questions about my relationship with an employee and his daughter. Clara's voice was steady, professional. Rather than address this defensively, I've chosen to use it as an opportunity to identify systemic gaps in our benefit structure and propose comprehensive solutions. She clicked to the next slide. Statistics on single-parent employees, overnight shift workers, childcare costs versus average wages. Sterling Global currently employs approximately 1,200 people working non-traditional hours. Night shifts, weekend coverage, rotating schedules that make traditional childcare impossible. Clara let the numbers speak. Of these, approximately 40% are single parents. The average overnight childcare cost in this city is $1,800 per month, while our median overnight shift worker earns $32,000 annually. Patricia leaned forward, studying the figures. You're saying our people can't afford childcare on what we pay them. I'm saying we pay competitive wages for the industry, but the industry standard doesn't account for the reality of single-parent households working irregular hours. Clara advanced to the next slide, which creates a situation where employees either sacrifice income to work day shifts with lower pay, or they find creative solutions that put their children at risk. Like bringing them to work, Jonathan said quietly. Like bringing them to work, Clara confirmed. Ryan Turner, the maintenance supervisor in question, has been doing exactly that for 2 years. His daughter sleeps in a storage room in the basement while he works, because the alternative is leaving a 6-year-old home alone overnight. The silence in the room was heavy. Marcus Webb shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't in his employment file, Patricia said. Was he disciplined? No. But Clara's voice was firm. Because the failure here isn't his, it's ours. We created a system that forces parents to choose between financial stability and their children's safety. She clicked through more slides. Proposals for subsidized childcare partnerships, emergency family accommodation spaces in the building, flexible scheduling options, education stipends for employees pursuing degrees while working full-time. The total annual cost is projected at $4.2 million, Clara said. With implementation costs of $1.8 million up front, we'll see ROI within 18 months through improved retention, reduced turnover costs, and increased productivity from employees who aren't managing childcare crises. That's a significant investment based on one employee's situation, Marcus said carefully. It's a necessary investment based on a systemic problem I should have identified years ago. Clara met his gaze. And yes, it was one employee's situation that brought it to my attention. Which brings us to the personal aspect of this discussion. She turned off the presentation, faced them directly. Ryan Turner's daughter has been sleeping in our building for 2 years. I discovered this 14 months ago during one of my late-night walks through the building. Clara's voice didn't waver. I should have reported it to HR. Instead, I started bringing her books and blankets. I checked on her when her father was delayed on other floors. I read to her when she had nightmares. Patricia's expression had gone from skeptical to something that might have been sympathy. Why? Because 7 years ago, I lost my daughter and my husband in a car accident. The words came out clean, direct. I haven't talked about them publicly because I didn't know how to function and grieve at the same time. So I chose function. I built this company as a distraction from the fact that going home meant walking into rooms that used to hold my family. You could have heard a pin drop. When I found Ava Turner alone in that storage room, having a nightmare, something in me broke, Clara continued. Or maybe it finally started to heal. I couldn't walk away. And over the past 14 months, she became important to me. How important? Jonathan's question was gentle but direct. Important enough that when she called me mommy in front of you on Friday, I didn't correct her. Clara's voice was steady despite the emotion behind it. Important enough that I'm standing here telling you I've developed a maternal attachment to an employee's child, which is completely inappropriate by any corporate standard. And yet you're not stepping back, Patricia observed. No, I'm not stepping back. Clara looked at each board member in turn. I'm choosing to be transparent about the relationship while implementing policies that ensure no preferential treatment. Ryan Turner will go through the same application process as any other employee for childcare benefits. He'll be eligible for the same educational opportunities, the same advancement possibilities. The only difference is that I'll be recusing myself from any decisions that directly impact his employment. Who makes those decisions instead? Marcus asked. HR, with board oversight if necessary. Clara had thought this through. Complete transparency. Complete accountability. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're asking us to trust that you can maintain professional boundaries while essentially co-parenting an employee's child. I'm asking you to trust that I can love someone without it compromising my judgment. Clara's voice was quiet but fierce. And if you can't trust that, then we have a bigger problem, because it means you think emotional connection inherently weakens leadership, which would be a fundamental disagreement about what kind of company we're building. The room went silent again. Patricia exchanged glances with Jonathan. Marcus made a note on his tablet. I need to ask the difficult question, Patricia said finally. What happens when this relationship ends? When Ryan Turner meets someone, moves on, decides he doesn't want his employer this involved in his daughter's life? The question hit harder than Clara expected because she'd been carefully not thinking about it, not allowing herself to consider the possibility that this fragile family she was building could dissolve as quickly as it had formed. Then it ends, Clara said, keeping her voice level. And I deal with loss again. But I'd rather risk that than spend the rest of my life afraid to care about anyone. That's not a business answer, Patricia pressed, because it's not a business question. Clara met her eyes. You're asking me to guarantee emotional outcomes. I can't do that. No one can. What I can guarantee is that my personal life won't interfere with my professional responsibilities. That Sterling Global will continue to be my priority. That the policies I'm proposing benefit the entire company, not just one family. And if we vote against these policies? Marcus asked. Then I'll respect the board's decision and find other ways to support our employees. Clara paused. But I'd also question why we're in business if not to make people's lives better. We're profitable. We're stable. We can afford to invest in the people who make this company run. Jonathan cleared his throat. I think we need to vote on two separate issues here. First, the Employee Family Support Initiative. Second, whether Clara's relationship with the Turner family represents a conflict of interest that requires her recusal from CEO duties. Clara's heart rate kicked up, but her expression stayed calm. Agreed. All in favor of implementing the Employee Family Support Initiative as presented? Jonathan looked around the table. Hands went up. Patricia. Marcus. 5 others. Then Jonathan's own hand rose. Motion passes. Jonathan made a note. Now the harder question. Who believes Clara's personal relationship represents a conflict that requires action by this board? The silence stretched. Clara watched faces, looking for tells, reading the room the way she'd learned to do in 1,000 high-stakes negotiations. Patricia spoke first. I think it's complicated, but I don't think it requires removal or recusal. She looked at Clara. I do think it requires oversight, regular check-ins, transparency about the relationship's progression. I can agree to that, Clara said. Marcus nodded slowly. I'm concerned about precedent. If our CEO can date an employee— I'm not dating him, Clara interrupted. We're not in a romantic relationship. But you could be, Marcus pressed. This started with you helping his daughter, but you're spending time together, building a connection. If that evolves into something romantic, we have a clear power imbalance issue. The accusation, because that's what it was, hung in the air. Clara felt heat rise in her face. If and when my relationship with Ryan Turner changes, I'll disclose it to the board immediately, she said firmly. But right now, we're two grieving parents trying to give a child some stability. That's all. Is it? Patricia's voice was curious rather than accusatory. Because, from what Jonathan described, you looked at that little girl like she was yours. And Ryan Turner let it happen. That's more than casual kindness. Clara took a breath. Let it out slowly. You're right. It is more than casual kindness. I care about Ava. I'm becoming attached to both of them in ways that terrify me because I know how badly loss can hurt. But caring about people doesn't make me less capable of running this company. If anything, it makes me more aware of what matters. Which is, Jonathan asked, building something that serves people, not just profits. Clara gestured at the presentation still visible on the screen. I spent 7 years making Sterling Global successful because it was easier than dealing with grief. And we are successful. But we could also be good. We could be the kind of company that recognizes employees are human beings with families and struggles, not just resources to be optimized. She paused, meeting each board member's eyes. Ava Turner sleeping in a basement storage room happened on my watch. That's unacceptable. And if loving her enough to fix the system that failed her family makes you question my leadership, then maybe you need a different kind of CEO. The words came out stronger than she'd intended, with an edge of challenge that made several board members shift in their seats. Are you threatening to resign? Marcus asked sharply. I'm stating a fact. Clara's voice was steel. I'm not going back to who I was. I won't sacrifice the relationships I'm building to maintain some fiction of corporate detachment. So if that's what you need from your CEO, tell me now, and I'll step aside. Clara, Jonathan started. I mean it, Jonathan. I've spent 7 years being exactly what you needed me to be. Cold, focused, uncompromising. It nearly killed me. I'm done choosing empty over real. Patricia was watching her with something that looked like respect. You've changed. In 3 days, you've fundamentally changed. No. I've remembered who I used to be before grief broke me. Clara's voice softened. I used to believe companies had responsibilities beyond profit. That leadership meant caring about the people you led. I lost that somewhere along the way. Ava gave it back to me. The silence that followed was different, thoughtful rather than tense. I move that we table the conflict of interest question, Patricia said finally. Give Clara 3 months to demonstrate she can balance her personal relationships with professional responsibilities. Revisit if issues arise. Second, said another board member, Harrison Chen, who'd been quiet until now. All in favor? Jonathan asked. Every hand went up. Claire felt something unclench in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Patricia said dryly. We'll be watching. And Clara, if this blows up, if it impacts your judgment or creates liability for the company, we will revisit this decision. Understood. Good. Patricia closed her tablet. Now, can we talk about the quarterly projections? Some of us have actual work to do. The meeting shifted to normal business, numbers and strategies and market analyses. Clara participated with her usual precision, proving to herself as much as to them that she could still function, could still lead, even with her heart exposed. But part of her mind was elsewhere, on a 6-year-old girl who'd called her mommy, on a man who'd trusted her with his daughter's safety, on the family she was choosing to build from the broken pieces of 2 tragedies. When the meeting finally ended, Jonathan lingered as the others filed out. That was gutsy, he said quietly, threatening to resign. I wasn't threatening, I was being honest. Even gutsier, Jonathan smiled slightly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're fighting for this. The old Clara was brilliant but brittle. This version might actually be sustainable. This version is terrified, Clara admitted. Good. Fear means you care about the outcome. Jonathan headed for the door, then paused. My daughter is Ava's age, 6 years old, obsessed with dinosaurs. If I lost my wife and had to work nights to survive, I'd do exactly what Ryan Turner did. And I'd be grateful if someone like you showed up to help. He left before Clara could respond. She sat alone in the boardroom for a long moment, processing everything that had just happened. She'd survived. More than survived, she'd won. The policies would be implemented. Her relationship with the Turners had board approval, at least conditionally. But the real test wasn't the board. It was whether she could actually do this, build a life that included other people, risk her heart on something as fragile and complicated as family. Her phone buzzed. Ryan, with a photo attached. Ava's drawing of a triceratops, all purple crayon and enthusiastic scribbles, with "For Clara Mom" written across the top in shaky letters. Clara stared at the image and felt tears burn behind her eyes. She typed back, "It's perfect. Thank you. Tell her I'll hang it in my office." Meeting go okay? Ryan's response was immediate. Better than expected. Policies approved. Board wants oversight, but no restrictions. That's amazing. Ava will be so excited. Clara hesitated, then typed, "Can I take you both to dinner tonight to celebrate?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "You sure? You've probably had a long day." "I'm sure, please." "Okay, 6:30? There's a pizza place Ava loves near our apartment." Pizza. Not the expensive restaurants Clara usually frequented, but a neighborhood place where a 6-year-old would be comfortable. "Send me the address. I'll be there." She left the boardroom feeling lighter than she had in years. Diane looked up as she passed, eyebrows raised in question. "It went well," Clara said. "The policies passed, and I still have a job." "I never doubted it," Diane smiled. "You had that look in your eye. The one that means you've already won. You're just letting everyone else catch up." Clara laughed. Actually, laughed. And disappeared into her office to hang a purple crayon triceratops on the wall behind her desk, where everyone who entered would see it. The rest of the day blurred past in a haze of emails and calls and the normal chaos of running a company. But Clara worked with a lightness she hadn't felt in 7 years, knowing that at 6:30 she'd walk into a pizza place and sit down with people who cared about her, not because she was powerful or wealthy or useful, but because she'd shown up, because she'd chosen them, and they'd chosen her back. At 6:15, she left the building. Diane's expression of shock was almost comical. Clara Sterling never left before 8 p.m. "I have dinner plans," Clara said, and walked out before Diane could recover enough to ask questions. The pizza place was exactly what she'd expected. Checkered tablecloths, arcade games in the corner, children's artwork on the walls. The kind of place Clara hadn't been to in years, maybe decades. Ryan and Ava were already there, sitting in a booth near the window. Ava spotted Clara first and practically bounced in her seat. "Clara, Mom! Daddy said you did great today!" Clara slid into this booth across from them, feeling self-conscious in her business suit among the casual family crowd. The board approved the new policies. Your dad will be able to get proper childcare support. Does that mean I don't get to sleep in the basement anymore? Ava's face fell slightly. It means you'll have a proper room with other kids and supervisors who are trained to take care of you, Clara explained gently. Much better than a storage room. But you won't be there. The simple statement cut deep. Clara glanced at Ryan, who looked equally caught off guard. I can still visit, Clara said carefully, if that's okay with your dad. More than okay. Ryan's voice was warm. We want you around, Clara, as much as you're willing to be. I'm willing to be around a lot, Clara admitted, if that's not too much. After today? After what you did for us? Ryan shook his head. You fought your board for policies that help hundreds of families. That's incredible. I fought my board because a 6-year-old was sleeping in my basement and I couldn't pretend I didn't care. Clara softened her voice. You gave me a reason to remember what matters. Ava was watching them with the intense focus children had when they knew something important was happening, but didn't quite understand what. Are you going to be my other mom for real? She asked suddenly. Clara's breath caught. Ryan froze. Ava, we talked about this, Ryan said gently. Clara is someone who cares about you very much, Clara interrupted. Someone who wants to be part of your life. But what we call that relationship is complicated. Why? Because the world doesn't understand chosen families, Clara thought. Because there are rules and expectations about who gets to be family and how it's supposed to look. Because family comes in lots of different forms, she said instead, and we're still figuring out what our form is. But you love me, right? Ava's voice was small, uncertain. Clara felt her heart crack wide open. Yes, sweetheart. I love you. And you're not going to leave? The question revealed the fear beneath Ava's enthusiasm. This child who'd already lost one mother, who'd learned that people could disappear without warning. Clara looked at Ryan, who nodded slightly. Permission or encouragement, she wasn't sure. I'm not going to leave, Clara said firmly. Even when things get hard or complicated, I'm staying. Ava's smile was brilliant and relieved all at once. She reached across the table to grab Clara's hand. Okay, then you can be my Clara mom. That's what we call it. And just like that, with the straightforward logic of childhood, Ava defined their relationship. The waitress arrived to take their order. Ava demanded pepperoni and didn't stop talking through the entire meal, telling Clara about her day at school and her friends and a bully named Marcus who'd taken her favorite crayon. Clara listened with full attention, asking questions and offering suggestions, feeling Ryan's eyes on her throughout. When Ava excused herself to use the bathroom, Ryan leaned forward. You're really good at this, he said quietly. At what? Being present, listening like what she says actually matters. It does matter. Clara was genuinely confused by the compliment. I know, but a lot of adults don't see it that way. They humor kids instead of engaging with them. Ryan's voice was soft with something that might have been affection. You engage. I had a daughter who asked a million questions. I learned that dismissing them just made her ask louder. Clara smiled at the memory. Lily once spent an entire week asking why we couldn't see air if it was all around us. Marcus finally brought home a physics textbook, and we spent Saturday afternoon doing experiments with vacuum chambers. She was 4? She was relentless. Clara's chest ached with the bittersweet pain of happy memories. And brilliant. And so full of life that losing her felt like the world had lost color. Ryan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The gesture was simple, supportive, and it nearly undid her. I see the color coming back, he said quietly. Clara turned her hand over, linking their fingers. Because of you, both of you. We're a team now, the 3 of us. A team, Clara agreed. Then, testing the word, a family. Is that what this is? I think so, or it's becoming one. Ryan's thumb traced circles on her palm. I never expected this. When Ava ran up to you on Friday, I thought my life was over. Instead, it's like it's finally starting. Mine too. They sat there, hands linked across the table, until Ava came bouncing back and demanded they play the arcade games in the corner. Clara found herself feeding quarters into machines and cheering when Ava won tickets and accepting a stuffed tiger as a prize because You need animals in your office too, not just Mr. Buttons. She stayed until Ava was yawning, until Ryan said they should probably head home, until the last possible moment she could stretch this ordinary, perfect evening. In the parking lot, Ava hugged her tight. See you soon? Very soon, Clara promised. Ryan walked her to her car, leaving Ava buckled into his beat-up sedan. Thank you, he said. For dinner. For today. For everything. Thank you for trusting me with her, with both of you. They stood in the yellow glow of the parking lot lights, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Clara? Ryan's voice was uncertain. This thing we're building, whatever we're calling it, I want you to know that it's not just about Ava. I care about you as a person, not just as someone who's good to my daughter. Clara felt her heart rate accelerate. I care about you too. Yeah? Ryan smiled slightly. Even though I'm just a maintenance supervisor with a studio apartment, you're a father who loves his daughter enough to risk everything for her. You're someone who saw me clearly when I'd forgotten who I was. Clara held his gaze. You're not just anything, Ryan Turner. He stepped closer. For a moment, Clara thought he might kiss her, and she realized she wanted him to. But he just squeezed her hand once more and stepped back. Good night, Clara. Good night. She drove home to her empty penthouse, but empty felt different now. It felt like a space between moments rather than a permanent state. Her phone buzzed as she was getting ready for bed. A photo from Ryan, Ava asleep, still clutching the stuffed tiger, with a caption that read, She insisted on taking it to bed, said it was from her Clara mom, so it would keep her safe. Clara stared at the image until her vision blurred. Then she typed back, Tell her it will. Always. And for the first time in 7 years, Clara Sterling went to sleep believing that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy again. That maybe love was worth the risk of loss. That maybe family wasn't something you lost once and never found again. Maybe it was something you could choose, could build, could become. If you were brave enough to try, the next 3 months unfolded like a slow exhale after years of holding her breath. Clara found herself restructuring not just company policies, but her entire life, carving out space for things she'd forgotten mattered. Wednesday evenings became dinner nights, alternating between the pizza place Ava loved and the small Italian restaurant near Ryan's apartment where the owner knew them by name within 2 weeks. Saturdays were for adventures, more museums, the aquarium, a disastrous attempt at ice skating that left all three of them laughing and bruised. The Employee Family Support Initiative launched to unexpected media attention. Business journals praised Sterling Global's progressive approach. Competitors scrambled to announce similar programs. Clara did 3 interviews where she carefully avoided mentioning Ava by name, speaking instead about systemic failures and corporate responsibility. But the board was watching. She felt their scrutiny in every quarterly review, every casual question about how she was balancing her time. Patricia Chen started attending their Wednesday dinners occasionally, ostensibly to discuss work, but really, Clara suspected, to observe the dynamic between her and Ryan. You're different with them, Patricia said one evening after Ava had dragged Ryan off to look at the dessert display. Softer. Is that a problem? Clara kept her voice neutral. No, just an observation. Patricia sipped her wine. Though I'll admit, when you first told us about the situation, I thought it would be a disaster. I'm glad to be wrong. You thought I'd lose objectivity. I thought you'd lose control, but if anything, you seem more focused. Patricia's gaze was assessing. Happier, which is making the other board members nervous because they don't know what to do with a happy Clara Sterling. They could try accepting it. They will, eventually. But Clara, Patricia leaned forward. They're also watching Ryan, waiting to see if he takes advantage of his connection to you, if he asks for promotions or special treatment. He won't. Clara's voice was firm. I believe that. But he needs to be careful. One misstep and they'll use it to prove you can't maintain boundaries. The warning lingered in Clara's mind long after Patricia left. She hadn't considered how vulnerable Ryan was in this situation, how his every professional move would be scrutinized for signs of impropriety. She brought it up that night when she drove Ryan and Ava home, waiting until Ava was distracted with a game on Clara's phone in the back seat. Patricia thinks the board is looking for reasons to prove this isn't working, Clara said quietly. Ryan's jaw tightened. Because of me. Because they're cautious. They want proof we can keep personal and professional separate. We are keeping them separate. I haven't asked you for anything. I know that, but they don't know you like I do. Clara navigated through traffic, choosing her words carefully. I'm going to recommend you for the facilities management director position that's opening up next month. Ryan turned to stare at her. What? Clara, no. That's exactly what they're worried about. It's what you're qualified for. You've been doing half those duties unofficially for a year. Your crew respects you. Building maintenance efficiency is up 18% since you took over the night shift. Clara kept her eyes on the road. This isn't favoritism. It's recognizing competence. It'll look like favoritism regardless of my qualifications. So you're saying I should pass over the most qualified candidate because of our relationship? That seems like worse judgment than promoting based on merit. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. This is impossible. Either way, people will question your motives. Let them question. I'll have documentation to support every claim I make about your performance. Claire's voice was steel. I won't let fear of perception prevent me from doing what's right. And if it backfires, if the board uses this as proof you can't be objective, then I'll deal with it. But Clara pulled up to Ryan's building, a 5-story walk-up in a neighborhood that was slowly gentrifying. But I won't compromise your career because people might talk. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. You really believe I'm qualified? I've seen the metrics. You're more than qualified. Clara softened. But I also won't submit your name if you're not comfortable with it. This has to be your choice. What about Ava? Ryan glanced back at his daughter, still absorbed in her game. If this creates problems for you, it creates problems for her too. Ava has 2 parents now who will protect her no matter what. The words came out naturally, though Clara still felt a flutter of uncertainty every time she claimed that role. We'll figure it out. Ryan nodded slowly. Okay, submit my name. But Clara, if the board pushes back, I withdraw. I won't be the reason you lose everything you've built. You're not the reason I'd lose it. Fear would be. Clara reached over and squeezed his hand. I'm done making decisions based on fear. Ava looked up from the phone. Are we home? I'm hungry again. You ate an entire pizza an hour ago, Ryan said, laughing. That was an hour ago. That's forever. Clara found herself smiling at their banter, at the easy affection between father and daughter, found herself wanting to go upstairs with them, to be part of the bedtime routine, to read Ava one more chapter of their current book. But she didn't, because some boundaries still mattered, and Ryan's apartment was his space, his and Ava's, and Clara needed to respect that, even as the lines between their lives blurred everywhere else. Good night, sweetheart, Clara said as Ava leaned forward for a hug. Sleep well. Will you be at my soccer game Saturday? Ava asked. Wouldn't miss it. Promise? Promise. Clara drove home alone, as she did every night, and tried not to think about how much she hated that part. Hated returning to empty rooms and expensive silence. Her penthouse had never felt like home, just a place to sleep between work sessions. Now it felt like exile. Her phone rang as she was unlocking her door. Jonathan Mercer. We need to talk, he said without preamble, about the facilities director position. Clara's stomach dropped. How did you already know I was planning to recommend Ryan? Patricia mentioned it. She's concerned. Of course she is. Clara walked into her apartment, flipping on lights. Jonathan, he's qualified, objectively qualified. I have documentation. I know. Patricia sent me his file, and you're right. He's probably the best candidate. Jonathan paused. But Clara, the optics are terrible. You're recommending your, what do we even call him? Your co-parent, your boyfriend. He's not my boyfriend. What is he then? Clara sat down heavily on her couch. He's someone I care about, someone who's become important to me and his daughter, but we're not romantically involved. Yet, Jonathan said quietly. Clara, I've known you for 15 years. I've watched you keep everyone at arm's length, build walls so high nobody could get close. And now you're having dinner 3 times a week with this man, attending his daughter's soccer games, texting him throughout the day. Don't look surprised, Diane mentioned it, and you expect me to believe there's nothing romantic there? What I expect is for you to trust that I can maintain professional boundaries while having a personal life. I do trust you. I'm asking if you trust yourself. Jonathan's voice was gentle. Because from where I'm sitting, you're falling for this man, whether you've admitted it or not. And when that happens, not if when, this situation becomes exponentially more complicated. Clara closed her eyes. So what are you suggesting? That I don't recommend him because we might develop feelings for each other? I'm suggesting you ask yourself what you're really doing here. Are you recommending him because he's qualified, or because you want him to have financial stability that makes your relationship easier? The question hit like a slap. You think I'm trying to buy him? I think you're trying to fix things. It's what you do. You see problems and you solve them. But Ryan Turner isn't a problem, Clara. He's a person. And using your position to change his life, even with good intentions, creates a power imbalance that's fundamentally unhealthy. Clara sat in the silence of her apartment, Jonathan's words echoing. Was he right? Was she trying to fix Ryan's situation instead of letting him handle it himself? He didn't ask for this, she said quietly. The recommendation. I offered it. Which makes it worse, not better. Jonathan sighed. Look, I'm not saying don't promote him. I'm saying be honest with yourself about why you want to, and be prepared for the fallout when people assume the worst. After they hung up, Clara sat in the dark for a long time, questioning everything. Her motives, her judgment, whether she was helping or hurting by inserting herself so completely into Ryan and Ava's lives. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Ava wants to know if you can come to her class on Friday. They're doing Parent Career Day, and she wants to introduce you as her Claire mom, who runs a big company. Clara stared at the message. Parent Career Day, where she'd stand in front of 6-year-olds and be introduced as Ava's mother figure, cementing in very public terms a relationship that was already causing whispers. She should say no, should maintain distance, especially with the promotion question looming. She typed back, "What time?" Ryan's response was immediate. 10 a.m. You sure? I can explain if it's too much. I'm sure. Tell her I'll be there. Tell her. Because Jonathan was right about one thing. She was falling for this family, falling hard and fast and without the control she usually maintained. But he was wrong about why she wanted to promote Ryan. It wasn't about fixing or buying or creating dependency. It was about recognizing worth in someone the world had overlooked. The same way Ryan and Ava had recognized worth in her when she'd forgotten she had any. Friday morning arrived with spring rain and Clara's nervous energy at peak levels. She'd dressed carefully, professional but approachable, the kind of outfit that said successful businesswoman without screaming unapproachable billionaire. Ava's school was in a neighborhood Clara rarely visited, a mix of working-class families and recent immigrants, the kind of place where Sterling Global had employees but Clara herself never went. The building was older, paint peeling in places, but the hallways were decorated with bright student artwork, and the energy was warm. Ryan met her at the entrance, umbrella in hand. You came. I promised. Clara took in his nervous expression. Are you okay? Just thinking about what Jonathan said, about optics, about how this looks. So Ryan knew about the phone call. Clara shouldn't have been surprised. Of course he and Jonathan had talked. Of course Ryan was worried about making things worse for her. Stop, Clara said firmly. We're here for Ava. Everything else can wait. Ava's classroom was chaos in the best way. 26-year-olds jacked up on excitement about Parent Career Day, artwork covering every surface, a hamster cage in the corner. Ava spotted Clara immediately and let out a shriek of joy that made every head turn. She came! My Clara mom came! And there it was, out in the open, in front of teachers and parents and children who would go home and tell their families about Ava Turner's unusual family situation. Clara felt every eye on her as she crossed to where Ava stood bouncing, felt the weight of judgment, curiosity, confusion. Then Ava hugged her, fierce and unself-conscious, and none of it mattered. The teacher, Miss Rodriguez, approached with a warm smile. You must be Clara. Ava talks about you constantly. All good things, I hope. The best things. She told us you're going to explain what a CEO does. Ms. Rodriguez gestured to a small chair set up at the front of the classroom. We're so excited to have you. Clara spent the next 30 minutes explaining corporate leadership to 6-year-olds, translating complex concepts into language they could understand. She talked about making decisions that affected thousands of people, about responsibility and strategy and the importance of listening to employees. Like a queen? One child asked. More like a team captain, Clara said. I help everyone work together toward the same goal. What goal? Another child piped up. Good question. Clara thought about it. Making sure people have jobs that pay them fairly, where they're treated with respect, and where they can take care of their families. Like my dad, Ava burst out. You helped my dad get better childcare. Clara saw Ms. Rodriguez's expression shift to understanding. This was the CEO behind Sterling Global's recent initiative, the one that had been in the news. Yes, Clara said gently. Like your dad. After her presentation, other parents went up. A firefighter, a nurse, a software engineer. Clara sat next to Ryan in the two small chairs and watched Ava's rapt attention. She's proud of you, Ryan murmured. She's been talking about this for days. The feeling is mutual. Clara kept her voice low. She's an incredible kid. Because of you. The confidence, the curiosity, that's what you've nurtured. That was already there. I just encouraged it. Ryan's hand found hers between the chairs, hidden from view. You're good at this, at being her parent. The words settled between them, no longer qualified or uncertain. Parent. Not Clara mom or mother figure or complicated relationship. Just parent. So are you, Clara whispered back. After school, they took Ava for ice cream again, their celebration ritual. Ava chattered about how everyone thought Clara was so cool, how Ms. Rodriguez asked if Clara could come back and talk about women in business. You should do it, Ryan said. Ava would love it. I'll talk to Ms. Rodriguez. Clara watched Ava attack her sundae with enthusiasm. Though I should probably run it by the board first. Make sure they're okay with me being this publicly associated with Ava's school. Is that really necessary? After everything with the promotion recommendation? Yes. Clara kept her tone light, but Ryan caught the tension underneath. I've been thinking about that, he said carefully. Maybe I should withdraw my name just to make things easier. Absolutely not. Clara, no. Her voice was firm. You're qualified. You deserve that position. And I won't let anyone make you feel like you have to limit your career because of me. But if it creates problems for you, then we'll solve them together. Clara met his eyes. That's what families do, right? Face problems together? Ryan's expression softened. Is that what we are now? Officially? I think we've been that for a while. We just haven't said it out loud. Ava looked up from her ice cream, catching the serious tone. Are you guys talking about grown-up stuff? Very grown-up stuff, Ryan confirmed. Are you going to get married? Both adults froze. Clara felt her heart stutter. Ava, we're not, Ryan stammered. Because Jenny at school said if two people love each other and take care of a kid together, they should get married. Ava's logic was impeccable and completely oblivious to the tension she'd just created. And you love Clara Mom, right, Daddy? And Clara Mom loves you? Ryan's face had gone red. It's complicated, sweetheart. Why is it complicated? Because, Ryan looked helplessly at Clara. Because adults make things complicated that don't need to be, Clara said, finding her voice. Your dad and I care about each other very much, and we both love you, but marriage is a big step that requires lots of talking and thinking. Have you talked and thought about it? No, Clara realized. They'd been so focused on navigating the day-to-day complications of their relationship that they'd never discussed where it was actually going, what they wanted from each other beyond co-parenting Ava. Not yet, Clara said honestly, but maybe we should. Ava shrugged, apparently satisfied, and went back to her ice cream. Ryan and Clara sat in charged silence, the question Ava had asked hovering between them. That night, after Ryan put Ava to bed, he called Clara. I'm sorry about earlier, he said. Ava shouldn't have put you on the spot like that. She didn't. She asked an honest question. Clara was curled up on her couch, city lights spreading out beyond her windows. And it made me realize we've been avoiding some important conversations. About marriage? About what we want, where this is going. Clara took a breath. I care about you, Ryan. More than I've cared about anyone since Marcus died. But I don't know if I'm capable of romantic love anymore. If that part of me survived the grief. I'm not asking you to love me the way you loved your husband, Ryan said quietly. Whatever this is between us, friendship, partnership, co-parenting, it's enough. Is it? Really? Clara's voice cracked slightly. Because you deserve more than someone who's using you to feel less empty. You're not using me, Ryan's voice was firm. Clara, you've given my daughter stability and love. You've given me hope that life can be good again. How is any of that using us? Because I'm getting more out of this than you are. You're helping me heal while I'm just what? Helping Ava thrive? Making sure we have financial security? Being present in our lives in a way nobody else has been? Ryan paused. You keep talking like you're taking from us. But all I see is you giving. Clara felt tears burn behind her eyes. I don't know how to do this. How to be someone's partner again. I forgot how it works. Then we figure it out together. No pressure, no timeline. Ryan's voice was gentle. We're already doing the hard part. Showing up every day, being honest, taking care of each other. Everything else is just details. Ava asked about marriage. Ava is 6. She thinks marriage solves everything because that's what happens in fairy tales. Ryan sounded amused. We don't have to have that figured out yet. But eventually we'll talk about it. When we're ready. When it makes sense. Ryan paused. Unless you're completely opposed to the idea? Clara thought about it. Really thought about it. Marriage to Ryan would mean legal entanglement, public acknowledgement, a relationship that couldn't be dismissed as complicated friendship. It would mean opening herself up to loss again in the most complete way possible. It would also mean family. Real, legally recognized family. Ava as her daughter, not just emotionally, but on paper. Ryan as her partner in every sense. I'm not opposed, she said softly. I'm terrified, but not opposed. That's good enough for now. She could hear the smile in Ryan's voice. We'll be terrified together. They talked for another hour about nothing important. Ava's upcoming school play, a leak in Ryan's apartment that he needed to fix, Clara's presentation to shareholders next week. Normal domestic conversation that felt more intimate than any strategic discussion. When they finally hung up, Clara sat in the silence of her penthouse and acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding. She was in love with Ryan Turner. Had been for weeks, maybe months. Had been pretending it was just gratitude or co-parenting or complicated friendship, when really it was the terrifying, vulnerable, all-consuming feeling she'd thought she'd never experience again. And instead of running from it, instead of building walls to protect herself, she was going to see where it led, even if it destroyed her. Even if loving him meant risking the kind of loss that had nearly killed her last time. Because Ava was right. Sometimes the answer to complicated adult problems was simple. You loved people, you chose them, you showed up, and you trusted that love was stronger than fear. The following Monday, Clara submitted Ryan's name for the facilities director position. She included 18 pages of documentation supporting his qualifications, metrics showing his performance, testimonials from his crew. She also included a letter to the board disclosing the nature of her relationship with Ryan, acknowledging the appearance of conflict, and requesting an independent review of his candidacy by an outside HR consultant. Patricia called within an hour. This is either the bravest thing you've ever done or the stupidest. Probably both, Clara agreed. The board is going to have opinions. Let them. I'm done hiding what matters to me. Even if it costs you everything? Clara thought about Ava's laugh, Ryan's quiet strength, the family they were building from broken pieces. I already lost everything once, she said. This time I'm choosing what to keep. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll support the recommendation. But Clara, you need to prepare for backlash. Not everyone is going to understand. I know. And if this falls apart, if Ryan turns out to be less than he seems, or if the relationship doesn't work out, then I'll deal with it. But I won't sabotage something good because I'm afraid of something bad. After she hung up, Clara looked at the calendar on her screen. Ava's soccer game was Saturday. The board meeting to discuss Ryan's promotion was scheduled for the following Tuesday. 1 week to prepare for the fight of her professional life. 1 week to prove that loving people didn't make you weak. It made you brave enough to risk everything for what actually mattered. Clara pulled up her presentation files and started building her case. Not just for Ryan's promotion, but for the radical idea that CEOs could be human, could care, could build families and run companies and refused to choose between the two. She worked until midnight, until her eyes burned and her back ached, until she had every argument and counter-argument memorized. Then she went home and slept dreamlessly for the first time in 7 years. Because whatever happened next, she wasn't alone anymore. She had family, and that was worth fighting for. Saturday's soccer game was supposed to be simple. Clara arrived early with coffee for Ryan and hot chocolate for Ava, settling onto the metal bleachers with the other parents as 6-year-olds in oversized jerseys warmed up on the field. The morning was crisp and bright, the kind of perfect spring day that felt stolen from summer. Ava spotted Clara immediately and waved so enthusiastically she nearly fell over. Clara waved back, feeling that now familiar warmth spread through her chest. Ryan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "She's been talking about this all week," he said. "Kept asking if you'd definitely be here." "I wouldn't miss it." Clara handed him his coffee. "Though I have to admit I don't actually understand soccer." Ryan laughed. "Neither do most of the kids. Half of them chase butterflies instead of the ball." He wasn't wrong. When the game started, it was adorable chaos. Children running in clumps, occasionally kicking in the general direction of goals. Parents cheering wildly for the smallest achievements. Ava was surprisingly focused, her little face intense with concentration as she tried to follow the coach's instructions. Clara found herself on her feet without realizing it, shouting encouragement when Ava got near the ball, groaning with the other parents when someone from the opposing team scored. It was ridiculous and wonderful and so completely normal that Clara felt something unlock in her chest. This was what she'd been missing, this ordinary Saturday morning magic, this community of parents supporting each other's children, this simple joy. "You're really into this," Ryan murmured, amused. "Ava worked hard. She deserves support." "She's 6. It's recreational soccer." "It's important to her. That makes it important." Clara caught herself. "Am I being too much?" "You're being perfect." Ryan's hand found hers between them on the bleacher. "She loves that you're here." Halfway through the game, Clara felt eyes on her. She turned to find another parent staring, a woman, maybe 40, well-dressed, with an expression Clara couldn't quite read. "You're Clara Sterling," the woman said. It wasn't a question. Clara's guard went up immediately. "I am. I work in HR at Sterling Global, 3rd floor." The woman's voice was careful, neutral. "I processed the applications for the new childcare program." Ryan tensed beside her. Clara kept her expression calm. "Then you know it's making a real difference for our employees," Clara said evenly. "It is. My sister is a single mom working nights in accounting. The program literally changed her life." The woman paused, then extended her hand. "I'm Michelle Cartwright. My daughter Emily is on Ava's team." Clara shook her hand, relaxing fractionally. "Nice to meet you." "I just wanted to say thank you. What you did, creating that program, it wasn't just good PR. It was real help for real people." Michelle glanced at Ryan, clearly recognizing him. "And I don't know the whole story about how it came about, but I'm grateful it did." After Michelle returned to her seat, Ryan let out a slow breath. "I thought that was going to go differently." "So did I." Clara watched the game, processing. "People are noticing, connecting the dots between the program and us. Is that going to be a problem?" "I don't know yet." Clara squeezed his hand. But Michelle was right about one thing. The program is helping people. That's what matters. The game ended with Ava's team losing spectacularly and none of the children caring even slightly. Ava ran over, sweaty and beaming. "Did you see? I almost scored." "Almost is still amazing," Clara said, pulling her into a hug despite the sweat. "You played so well." "Can we get pancakes? Coach said winners get pancakes, but I think players should get pancakes too." Ryan laughed. "Pancakes it is." They ended up at a diner near the soccer field, crammed into a booth with Ava chattering non-stop about the game. Clara listened, contributed, felt herself settling into this role with increasing comfort. Parent, partner, part of something bigger than herself. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Board meeting moved up to tomorrow morning. Emergency session. Jonathan will call you tonight." Clara's stomach dropped. Tomorrow. Not Tuesday. Which meant something had changed, something significant enough to accelerate the timeline. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked, noticing her expression. Board meeting got moved up tomorrow instead of Tuesday. About my promotion? Among other things, probably. Clara set her phone down, forcing herself to stay present. I'll handle it. But her mind was already racing through possibilities. Had someone objected to Ryan's candidacy? Had media caught wind of their relationship? Had the board decided her judgment was too compromised? That evening, after Ryan took Ava home, Jonathan called, as promised. 3 board members want to vote on your removal as CEO, he said without preamble. Clara felt the floor drop out from under her. Based on what grounds? Conflict of interest, impaired judgment, inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. Jonathan's voice was tight. They've been building a case for the past month, collecting evidence of every interaction between you and Ryan Turner, every dinner, every text message, every public appearance together. That's insane. We haven't hidden anything. That's part of their argument. They say you're so compromised you don't even see the problem anymore. Jonathan paused. Clara, they have photos of you at Ava's soccer game today, holding Ryan's hand, looking at him like what? Like you're in love with him. Jonathan's voice was gentle. Which I assume you are. Clara closed her eyes. Yes. Have you told him? Not explicitly, but I think he knows. That's going to come out tomorrow. They're going to ask about the nature of your relationship. And Clara, you need to be honest. But you also need to understand that honesty might cost you everything. After they hung up, Clara sat in the silence of her penthouse and faced the reality of what was coming. She could fight for her position, could argue that her personal life didn't impact her professional performance, could point to Sterling Global's continued success, the positive response to new initiatives, the metrics that proved she was still effective. Or she could tell the truth, that she'd fallen in love with Ryan Turner, that she wanted to build a life with him and Ava, that if forced to choose between the company and her family, she'd choose family every single time. The first option kept her safe, protected her empire, maintained the walls. The second option risked everything. But it was honest. And after 7 years of hiding, of building armor against feeling, Clara was tired of safe. She called Ryan. He answered on the first ring. I need to tell you something, Clara said, and I need you to just listen until I'm done. Okay. His voice was cautious. The board is voting tomorrow on whether to remove me as CEO. 3 members think I'm too compromised by my relationship with you and Ava to lead effectively. Clara took a breath. They're going to ask about my feelings for you, and I'm going to tell them the truth, which is that I'm in love with you. The words came out quiet but certain. That I have been for months. That choosing you and Ava doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It feels like finally remembering what it means to be alive. Ryan was quiet for so long, Clara thought the call had dropped. Are you there? She asked. I'm here. Just... His voice cracked. Clara, you can't lose your company because of me. Everything you've built, I built it as a distraction from grief. It was never what I actually wanted. Clara felt tears sting her eyes. You and Ava, you're what I want. And if the board can't accept that I can lead a company and love a family at the same time, then maybe I'm leading the wrong company. You're serious. You'd walk away. I'd fight first. But yes, if it came to it, I'd walk away. Clara's voice steadied. Because I already lost one family. I won't lose another one by choosing work over the people who matter. What can I do? Ryan asked. How can I help? Just be there tomorrow. You and Ava, waiting for me when it's over. Clara wiped her eyes. That's all I need. We'll be there. Clara, he paused. I love you too. I should have said it before, but I was scared. Scared you weren't ready. Scared I'd push too hard. Say it again, Clara whispered. I love you. Ava loves you. We want you in our lives, however that looks. Even if it means I'm unemployed, Ryan laughed, the sound breaking tension. I fell in love with you when you were sneaking into a basement storage room to read to my daughter. The CEO part was never what mattered. They talked until past midnight, about everything and nothing, about the life they wanted to build regardless of what tomorrow brought. When Clara finally hung up, she felt calm, centered, ready. She spent Sunday morning preparing not a defense, but a declaration. She'd present Ryan's qualifications one final time. She'd acknowledge her feelings openly, and then she'd let the board decide what kind of company Sterling Global wanted to be. The boardroom at 9 a.m. felt different than it had 3 months ago. The same faces, the same glass table, but the energy was charged with something Clara recognized as fear. They were afraid of what she represented, a leader who'd chosen vulnerability over control. "Let's begin," Jonathan said, his voice heavy. "Clara, you know why we're here." "I do." Clara stood, projecting calm confidence. "You're concerned that my relationship with Ryan Turner compromises my ability to lead Sterling Global effectively." "That's putting it mildly," said board member Richard Morrison, one of the three pushing for her removal. "You've developed an inappropriate attachment to an employee. You're recommending him for promotion despite the obvious conflict of interest. You're appearing publicly as a family unit. This is a catastrophic lapse in judgment." "Let me address each point." Clara pulled up her presentation. "First, Ryan Turner's qualifications for facilities director. I've submitted 18 pages of documentation. I've requested independent review by an outside consultant. Every metric supports his candidacy. If you can find a more qualified applicant, I'll withdraw his name immediately." She clicked through slides showing Ryan's performance data, his crew's efficiency improvements, testimonials from colleagues who had no idea about his relationship with Clara. "The outside consultant completed their review yesterday," Patricia said. "They confirmed Ryan Turner is the strongest candidate by significant margin." Richard's jaw tightened. "That doesn't address the appearance of impropriety." "You're right, it doesn't." Clara closed the presentation. "So let me address that directly. I'm in love with Ryan Turner. I'm actively co-parenting his daughter. We're building a life together. None of this is secret or hidden. I've disclosed everything to this board because transparency is the only way to maintain trust." The room went deadly silent. "You're admitting to a romantic relationship with a subordinate employee," Richard said, triumph creeping into his voice. "I'm admitting to falling in love with a good man who happened to work in this building when we met," Clara corrected. "I didn't pursue him. I didn't proposition him. I found his daughter sleeping in a storage room and I helped. That help evolved into friendship, then family, then love. If you see that progression as inappropriate, then you're saying employees and executives can never form genuine human connections, which seems like a bleak way to run a company." "It's a professional way to run a company," Richard shot back. "Personal relationships create liability, favoritism, lawsuits. They also create loyalty, investment, reasons for people to care about their work beyond a paycheck." Clara looked around the table. "I'm not the same CEO I was a year ago. That woman was brilliant and miserable. She built an empire and hated her life. She worked 18-hour days because going home meant confronting how empty her world had become." She let that sink in. "The woman standing here now works reasonable hours, takes Saturdays off, attends soccer games and parent career days, and Sterling Global hasn't suffered. Our numbers are up. Employee satisfaction is the highest it's been in 5 years. The childcare program is being studied by competitors as a model for progressive workplace policy." Clara's voice was strong. "I'm a better CEO because I'm a happier person, and I'm happier because I stopped being afraid to love people." Patricia was nodding slowly. Jonathan's expression was unreadable. Richard looked ready to explode. "This is exactly what we feared," Richard said. "You've lost all objectivity. You're making this about emotion instead of business." "I'm making it about both, because they're not mutually exclusive." Clara turned to face him directly. "You want to remove me because I fell in love. Fine. Call the vote. But be clear about what you're really saying, that caring about people makes someone unfit to lead, that vulnerability is weakness, that the only good CEO is one who sacrifices their humanity for profit." "That's not what we're saying," Marcus Webb interjected. "But Clara, there are boundaries, lines that shouldn't be crossed between personal and professional. I've maintained those boundaries. Ryan goes through normal channels for everything. I've recused myself from decisions about his employment. I've been more transparent with this board than I ever was before." Clara's voice rose slightly. "What more do you want? For me to be alone? To sacrifice my chance at family because it makes you uncomfortable?" "We want our CEO to be above reproach," Richard said coldly. "Then you want a robot, not a person." Clara felt her control slipping but didn't try to rein it in. "I'm done pretending I don't have feelings, done apologizing for choosing love over isolation. If that makes me unfit in your eyes, then remove me. But don't expect me to go back to the way I was. I'd rather lose this job than lose myself again." The silence that followed was absolute. Jonathan cleared his throat. "I think we need to vote. All in favor of removing Clara Sterling as CEO of Sterling Global due to conflict of interest?" Richard's hand went up immediately. Two others followed. Board members Clara had known for years, people she'd worked alongside, people she'd thought understood her. All opposed? Patricia's hand rose, Jonathan's, Marcus's. Four others, 7-3. Clara felt her knees go weak with relief. "Motion fails," Jonathan said. "Clara remains CEO. However," he looked at her seriously, "we're implementing quarterly reviews. Your relationship with Ryan Turner will be monitored for any signs of preferential treatment. And Clara, if this situation evolves in ways that create actual conflicts, not perceived ones, actual ones, we will revisit this decision." "Understood." Clara's voice was steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "One more thing," Patricia said. "Ryan Turner's promotion to facilities director? All in favor?" Every hand went up. Even Richard's, though he looked like it physically pained him. "Unanimous," Patricia said with satisfaction. "Congratulations, Clara. You just survived the fight of your life." After the meeting ended and the board members filed out, Jonathan lingered. "That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the most reckless," he said. "Both," Clara agreed, echoing Patricia's words from months ago. "Richard will be watching for any excuse to bring this up again." "Let him watch. I've got nothing to hide." Clara started gathering her materials. "Thank you for supporting me." "I didn't do it for you. I did it because you were right." Jonathan smiled slightly. "Companies should be run by humans, not robots. Even if those humans occasionally fall in love with maintenance supervisors." Clara left the building and found Ryan waiting in the lobby with Ava, exactly as promised. The moment Ava saw her, the little girl broke free and ran. "Did you win?" Ava asked, grabbing Clara's hands. "I did." Clara crouched down to her level. "And your dad got the promotion." Ryan's eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Unanimous vote. You start next month." Clara stood, meeting his gaze. "Congratulations, Director Turner." He pulled her into a hug right there in the Sterling Global lobby, in front of security and early arriving employees and anyone who might see. Clara hugged him back, not caring about appearances or whispers or what anyone thought. "You fought for us," Ryan said against her hair. "You could have lost everything." "I would have lost everything if I'd chosen differently." Clara pulled back enough to see his face. "I meant what I said last night. You and Ava, you're what matters." Ava tugged on both their hands. "Can we celebrate with pancakes?" "It's barely 10 a.m., Ryan said, laughing. "Pancakes work for any time," Ava insisted. So they went for pancakes, this unconventional family that had formed from grief and chance and the radical choice to love anyway. They sat in their usual booth at the diner, and Clara felt the last piece of armor fall away. "I need to tell you something," Clara said once Ava was distracted with crayons. "Something I should have said months ago." Ryan set down his coffee. "Okay." "When I found Ava in that storage room, I was in the darkest place I'd been since losing Lily and Marcus. I'd spent 7 years functioning but not living, working but not feeling, and then this little girl was crying from a nightmare, and something in me just broke open." Clara's voice was thick. "You saved my life, both of you. You gave me a reason to feel again." "Clara, see, let me finish." She took a breath. "I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to be too protective sometimes and too distant other times because I'm still learning how to do this without being terrified. But I love you. I love Ava. And I want to build a real family with you, not just casual dinners and Saturday museums, real, legal, permanent." Ryan stared at her. Clara, are you asking me to marry you? Eventually, when we're ready, when it makes sense." Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Unless you think that's completely insane given we've technically only been together for a few months." "I think," Ryan said slowly, "that I've been in love with you since you showed up in a basement storage room at 2 a.m. with a stuffed bear and children's books. I think time is irrelevant when you've found your person." He reached across the table and took her hand. "And I think yes. Whenever you're ready to ask properly, my answer is yes." Ava looked up from her drawing. "Are you getting married?" Eventually, Clara said, laughing through sudden tears, if that's okay with you, can I be the flower girl? You can be whatever you want to be. Then yes, it's very okay. Ava went back to her crayons, the matter settled in her mind. Clara and Ryan sat there grinning at each other like fools, hands linked across the table, while Ava drew increasingly elaborate pictures of dinosaurs in wedding dresses. The next few weeks blurred past in a haze of changes. Ryan started his new position and proved within days why he'd been the right choice. Efficiency improved, morale rose, problems got solved. The media coverage of Sterling Global's progressive leadership faded into normal business news. The board's quarterly review came and went without incident, and slowly, carefully, Clara started moving her life out of the penthouse and into Ryan's world. Not literally at first, his studio was too small for 3 people, but emotionally. She spent more nights falling asleep on his couch after Ava's bedtime than in her own expensive bed. Started keeping clothes in his closet, began looking at apartments big enough for a family. 6 months after the board meeting, Clara came home from work to find Ryan and Ava waiting in the lobby of her building. We have something to show you, Ava announced, bouncing with excitement. They led her to Ryan's car and drove to a neighborhood Clara didn't recognize. Tree-lined streets, older houses with character, the kind of place where children played on sidewalks and neighbors knew each other's names. Ryan pulled up in front of a 2-story house with a porch and a yard. Nothing fancy, but solid and warm and completely perfect. It's in our price range, Ryan said quickly. With my new salary, and if you wanted to contribute, not that you have to, I know you have your own place, but Clara kissed him, right there in the car, cutting off his nervous rambling. It's perfect, she said. Show me inside. The house had 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a kitchen that needed updating but had good bones. Ava ran through it, claiming the room that overlooked the backyard, talking about where her dinosaur posters would go. Clara stood in what would be the master bedroom and imagined waking up here every morning. Imagined lazy Sundays and family dinners, and a life built on more than just surviving grief. I want to buy it together, she said. Equal partners, our house, our family. Ryan's smile was brighter than she'd ever seen it. Our family. I like the sound of that. They closed on the house 2 months later. Clara sold her penthouse without a second thought, packing up 7 years of expensive isolation and walking away from it without regret. Moving day was chaos, boxes everywhere, Ava helping by creating more mess than she cleaned, Ryan trying to assemble furniture while Clara attempted to organize the kitchen. Patricia stopped by with a housewarming gift and a knowing smile. You look happy, she said, watching Clara direct traffic from the middle of controlled chaos. I am, Clara said simply. The board noticed. Richard finally stopped grumbling about your judgment last quarter. Patricia handed over a bottle of wine. Turns out letting yourself be human makes you better at your job. Who knew? You did, Clara said. You all did. You just had to wait for me to figure it out. That night, after the movers left and Ava was asleep in her new room, Clara and Ryan sat on the porch of their house and watched the neighborhood settle into evening quiet. I never thought I'd have this again, Clara said softly. A home, a family, a reason to rush home from work instead of finding excuses to stay late. You deserve it. You've always deserved it. Ryan pulled her closer. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for letting me. Clara rested her head on his shoulder. For seeing past the Ice Queen CEO to the person underneath. That person was always there. She was just scared. She was terrified, Clara corrected. Still is sometimes, but less than before. They sat in comfortable silence until Ryan spoke again. I have something for you, an early birthday present. My birthday isn't for 3 months. Consider it a housewarming gift then. Ryan pulled a small box from his pocket. Clara's breath caught. Ryan, I know we said eventually, when we were ready, but Clara, I've been ready since you showed up at Ava's soccer game and cheered like she was playing for the World Cup. He opened the box to reveal a simple ring, elegant and understated. Marry me. Make this official. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that taking a chance on us was the best decision you ever made. Clara looked at the ring, at this man who'd seen her at her most broken and loved her anyway, at the house they'd bought together and the life they were building. Yes, she said, and then louder. Yes, absolutely yes. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her while somewhere inside their house, Ava slept peacefully in a room that was hers, in a home that was theirs, in a family built on choice and love and the courage to be vulnerable. The wedding happened 3 months later in the backyard of their house, with Ava as the most enthusiastic flower girl in history. The ceremony was small, just close friends, a handful of board members, Ava's soccer team parents who'd become their community. Clara wore a simple dress and couldn't stop smiling. Ryan cried during his vows. Ava announced to everyone that she now had 2 moms and felt extra lucky. Patricia gave a toast about the power of letting yourself be human. Jonathan made a joke about maintenance supervisors marrying their way to the top that actually landed. Even Richard Morrison showed up and grudgingly admitted that Clara seemed happy. When it was over and the guests had gone home and Ava was crashed out on the couch in her fancy dress, Clara and Ryan stood in their kitchen and marveled at the impossibility of it all. "A year ago, I was sleeping in storage rooms and you were walking empty hallways at 2 a.m., Ryan said. "Now we're married with a house and a kid and an actual future." "Best year of my life," Clara said. "Scary and complicated and absolutely the best." Even with the board drama and the media attention and Richard Morrison's disapproving face, especially with all of that, because it meant fighting for something real instead of hiding behind professional distance. Clara wrapped her arms around him. "You taught me that love is worth the risk. You taught me that worth isn't determined by job titles or bank accounts, that showing up matters more than being perfect." Ryan kissed her forehead. "We're a good team. The best team." They stood there in the warm kitchen of their home while their daughter slept in the next room, and Clara felt something she hadn't felt in 8 years, complete. Not because the grief was gone, it would never fully be gone. Lily and Marcus would always be part of her story, always be loved and missed and remembered, but because she'd learned that loss didn't have to mean the end of love, that hearts could break and heal and break again and still have room for more people. That family wasn't something you lost once and never found again. It was something you chose, every single day, in big moments and small ones, in board meetings where you fought for what mattered, and in soccer games where you cheered too loud, and in quiet evenings on the porch watching the world go by. Ava wandered into the kitchen, half asleep, dragging her flower girl basket. "Is the party over?" "The party's just starting, sweetheart," Clara said, scooping her up. "We have the rest of our lives to celebrate." "Good. I like celebrating." Ava yawned. "I love you, Clara, Mom." "I love you too, baby. And I love Daddy." "I know you do." "And I love that we're a forever family now. The legal said so." Clara laughed, tears stinging her eyes. "The legal definitely said so." Ryan joined them, wrapping his arms around both his girls. "Forever family. I like the sound of that." They stood there in the golden kitchen light, this family built from broken pieces and second chances, and Clara understood something fundamental. The word that had stopped the world, "Mommy," shouted in a hallway by a 6-year-old, hadn't destroyed her carefully constructed life. It had given her a real one, a life where she went home instead of working until midnight, where she knew her neighbors and attended school plays and built blanket forts on rainy Sundays, where love was messy and complicated and absolutely worth every risk. Sterling Global continued to thrive under her leadership, now guided by someone who understood that taking care of people wasn't just good policy. It was the whole point. The childcare program expanded. More progressive benefits followed. Clara became known not as the Ice Queen CEO, but as the leader who proved that compassion and competence could coexist. But more importantly, Clara came home every night, to noise and chaos, and a little girl who did her homework at the kitchen table while Clara cooked dinner. To a husband who challenged her and supported her and loved her without conditions. To a family that chose each other every single day. On the anniversary of the day Ava had called her mommy, in that hallway, Clara took the afternoon off. She picked Ava up from school early and drove to the cemetery where Lily and Marcus were buried. She'd avoided this place for 8 years. Couldn't face it. Couldn't reconcile the love she still felt with the life she'd moved on to. But now, with Ava's hand in hers, Clara knelt in front of the graves and felt ready. "Lily, Marcus, this is Ava," Clara said quietly. "She's your little sister in a way, and I think you'd love her." Ava looked at the headstones with solemn curiosity. "Are they the ones who live in the stars?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I talk to them?" Of course. Ava stepped forward and addressed the graves with the seriousness of childhood. Hi, I'm Ava. I'm 6 3/4. Clara Mom takes care of me now, but she still loves you very much. She told me. And I wanted to tell you thank you for sharing her with me because she's the best mom ever. Well, second best. My first mom was best too, so I guess I have two best moms. She paused. That's pretty lucky. Clara felt tears stream down her face. Happy tears this time. Healing tears. I'll take good care of her, Ava continued earnestly, and I'll make sure she's not sad anymore. And when I have good days, I'll tell them about you so you don't miss everything, okay? Clara pulled Ava into a hug, holding tight to this child who'd saved her life without even knowing she needed saving. They'd love you, Clara whispered, just like I do. They stayed until the sun started setting, Clara telling Ava stories about Lily and Marcus, about the family she'd lost and the love that hadn't disappeared just because they had. Ava listened with her whole heart, asking questions and making connections and treating these stories like the precious gifts they were. As they walked back to the car, Ava slipped her hand into Clara's. Clara, Mom? Are you happy now? Clara looked at this little girl who'd run up to her in a hallway and changed everything. Thought about Ryan waiting for them at home, probably making dinner and making a mess. Thought about the life they'd built together, imperfect and real and absolutely enough. Yes, sweetheart, Clara said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. I'm happy now. Good, me too. They drove home through the evening light, and Clara felt the last piece of her grief transform into something new. Not forgetting, not replacing, but integrating. Making room for both her past and her present, for the love she'd lost and the love she'd found. She'd spent 7 years afraid that loving again meant betraying the family she'd lost. But Ava had taught her the truth. Love didn't replace love. It expanded it. Hearts didn't have finite space. They grew to hold whoever you let in. And sometimes, the bravest thing you could do was let yourself be happy again. Let yourself build something new without guilt. Let yourself believe that you deserved a second chance at family. That night, after dinner and homework and the chaos of bedtime routines, Clara stood in the doorway of Ava's room and watched her sleep. This child who'd called her mommy. This child who'd refused to let Clara disappear into her grief. This child who'd saved her by needing her. Ryan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She's out cold, he murmured. She had a big day. Clara leaned back against him. We went to visit Lily and Marcus. How was that? Hard, good, necessary. Clara turned in his arms. I told them about us, about the family we've built, and I think they'd be happy for me. For us. I think so too. Ryan kissed her softly. You ready for bed? Almost. I want to do one more thing first. Clara went to her home office and pulled out the journal she'd been keeping since that first night Ava had called her mommy. She'd been writing it all down. Every fear, every joy, every moment of this impossible journey from grief to healing to love. She wrote one final entry. To whoever reads this someday. Maybe Ava when she's older. Maybe no one at all. I want you to know that second chances are real. That broken hearts can heal without forgetting what broke them. That family isn't just blood and biology. It's choice. It's showing up. It's love brave enough to risk loss because the alternative, staying safe and alone, isn't actually living. I lost everything once. Built an empire from grief and rage and the desperate need to feel in control. And then a 6-year-old girl called me mommy in a corporate hallway. And that empire cracked wide open to reveal what I'd been missing all along. Not power, not success, not safety. Connection. Love. Family. The beautiful, terrifying vulnerability of letting people matter. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll always get this balance right. CEO and wife and mother, professional and personal, careful and brave. But I know I'm done choosing fear over love. I know that the word that stopped my world, mommy, became the word that started it again. And I know that wherever Lily and Marcus are, they're okay with me being happy, with me building a life that honors their memory by being fully lived. Because that's what love does. It doesn't end when people die. It transforms. It grows. It makes room for more love without diminishing what came before. My name is Clara Sterling. I'm the CEO of a global corporation. I'm a widow who survived grief by becoming ice. And I'm a mother again. By choice. By chance. By the radical courage of a little girl who refused to let me stay frozen. This is my story. Our story. And it's just beginning. Clara closed the journal and went to bed, climbing in beside her husband in their home where their daughter slept peacefully down the hall. She'd spent years walking empty hallways at 2 a.m., unable to sleep in the silence of loss. Now she slept soundly, wrapped in Ryan's arms, knowing that she'd wake to noise and chaos and the beautiful mess of family. The emptiness was gone. The silence was full. And Clara Sterling, who'd lost everything and built it back into something even better, finally came home. Not to a building, not to an office, not to the empire she'd constructed from grief, but to the people who loved her, who chose her, who saw past the armor to the person underneath and decided she was worth fighting for. To the family she'd found in a basement storage room at 2 a.m. To the life she'd almost missed by being too afraid to feel. To home,